my goodness, here we are.
We're here.
We're here. We're live. It's Showboys.
Oh man.
Welcome everyone to another episode of Showboys. This week we'll be diving into our What's Playing series. And I guess before we get any further, we just want to welcome a show regular, Chad. He's going to be joining us as a new co-host for the What's Playing series. So, I mean, he pretty much was already like our unofficial co-host for this series.
That's valid.
Yeah, we just decided, hey, let's quit, playing footsie here. Let's commit. Let's go all in. So yeah, welcome. Thank you for joining the team, man.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I was super excited when you guys asked me. So, I mean, it was like you were like, take some time. I was like, no, I'll do it.
Think about it.
Yes. And of course, we're as always joined by Nick over here. How you guys doing tonight?
Swell.
Nice.
How are you? I never
yeah.
ask. I always realize that after the fact. I never ask Mike how he is. Mike, how are you tonight?
It's true. I'm growing used to it. I'm just another talking head to Nick.
Look at
no
the product.
feeling.
Look at the product placement. I see.
That's right. This week's episode is not brought to you by Taco Bell, though I wish it was.
I think that's hilarious. You have a Taco Bell shirt, but I was talking about the Funkoverse.
Oh yes.
Oh yeah, there you go.
I noticed that because of how far away my wall is, which the camera makes it look like it's like 30 feet away, but it's really like 2 feet away. I don't know why everything is so small.
It does look. You look obnoxiously small in that room. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's really not that big. But
yeah,
yeah,
those Lego brickheads.
That's what they look like. But no, it's my Funko collection. And then over here off camera, I have my newly collected Star Wars pops, which we're making some shelves. As you can see, this nice black open spot right here. It's going to be filled with all my Star Wars pops.
Nice. Which
I just counted today. Since Christmas, I've accumulated 17 Star Wars pops.
Wow.
Welcome to Star Boys.
Welcome to Star Boys.
We're actually, we're going to ditch this entire topic. Forget what the title says. We are talking about Star Wars for 3 hours.
That is right. But no, to answer your question, I'm doing well. Thank you for asking.
Okay.
Finally.
Good. I'm glad.
Yeah. So, unlike what Nick said, we're actually not going to talk about Star Wars exclusively. I'm sure it'll come up.
It's coming up.
But no, we thought it would be fun to bring you guys our top 5 favorite games of all time. Now, when we didn't really go too much into detail on like what meets that criteria, so I interpreted it as like my favorite games that like I had fun playing, or brought back some like cool gaming memories, not necessarily like the top most critically acclaimed games that I've ever played or things like that. So like what did you guys do when you approached making this list?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of did it the same way, but it happens that a lot of my games, if not all of them, are critically acclaimed. Just the way it worked out. So
nice little humble brag there.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the way that it worked out. But I took it the same way as you. I don't really do too much looking at reviews or anything when I play a game. I like to develop my own opinions on them. So it seems like I line up with almost everybody else, unfortunately.
Right. It must be nice having a incredibly amazing taste in video games.
Yeah, it's rough.
Yeah.
When you play them all, it's just kind of how it happens.
That's also valid.
Yes. What about you, Nick? What did you do?
I found myself going for a combination of lifetime play hours, just like in my head, things that I'm nostalgic for because I just remember playing these games a crap ton. And because of that, they probably do tend to fall back into, the 2000s and the early 2010s when I had more time to play games and gaming was much different back then. So at that time I definitely took, a handful of games and played them to death. Unlike kind of today, it's harder to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel you on that. I mean, if anyone's been listening to the show for any period of time, you all know by now I have a crippling addiction to one singular game. So
as long as it's not your number one, I think we'll make it through this podcast. Okay.
Hopefully not.
Uh-oh.
I was kind of hoping that it wasn't even a top 5 game, but we'll see.
No comment.
Doesn't it have a place like outside of your top 5, like above it? You know what I mean? We can just exclude it from the petty
like the
top 5 list.
Yeah,
the platinum list, Mike's platinum list.
It's literally just a part of me now. Like
the
it's
list he wishes he was on.
Exactly. Every list I make for anything in my entire life, this game is just a part of. But yeah, we'd like to welcome anyone who's watching the live stream. We got PM Fusion coming in. He says this will be my first episode I ever watch of you guys. Looking forward to it.
Nice.
Well, hey, thanks for joining the stream, and hopefully we don't disappoint you. But I wouldn't hold your breath because we're pretty terrible. So
maybe we should get to the topic since someone's watching instead of just talking.
Right, and that's how we get 2.5 hour long episodes.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, without further ado, let's get right into it. I'll start out with my number 5, and I don't know if you guys have heard of this game, but number 5 is Gotham City Imposters for me. This was a first-person shooter. I played it on PlayStation 3, but I think it was also on Xbox 360 and maybe PC too. But yeah, this was a game that I played a lot of with a familiar name for anyone in our Discord, our chief moderator, Fortress Tiberius, aka Ryan. We spent many hours playing this game, grinding out matches, and just a lot of super fun memories playing this. But basically, it's a first-person shooter set in Gotham City, and the teams are made up of Batman imposters or Joker imposters. So it's just like random schmucks dressed up as Batman or the Joker. And it's very similar to Team Fortress 2. There's different like roles, support, demolition, your DPS classes and whatnot. And it just had a lot of really cool like customization for your character, different abilities and travel types and weapon types. And
sounds like a deep cut. I've never heard of it.
Yeah, no, it's really fun. It only lasted, I played it from 2012 to like 2013-ish. But the servers got shut down a couple years ago, and to like relaunch the game or like remake it or make a sequel or whatever, which of course didn't go anywhere. But yeah, it was super fun, and I wish that it was still around for you guys to try out, but you should definitely YouTube some videos of it. Check out some of the gameplay. It was a blast, and I would love if they were to remake this, reboot it, make a sequel, something, bring it into the next gen, put it back up on Steam or whatever, because I had a blast playing it.
Well, it sounds fun. It sounds different too.
Oh yeah, it was unique for sure.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like the typical Batman take or Gotham City take, you know what I mean? A first-person shooter. That's it. I have never heard of this game either, which is weird because I've heard of most games.
Yeah, right.
You stumped me already right out the gate.
Yeah, and I mean, not only was it a first-person shooter, but it was like a comedic take on Gotham. Like it was a silly, like funny game. But yeah, there was my favorite thing to do was play as like the heavy character. And one of the travel abilities or whatever was a hang glider, so you could like glide around like Batman.
Oh, nice!
And you could do dive bombs on top of players and like kill them. So like I would just be this big fat dude flying around the map and like dive bombing on people. So fun.
So is Batman in the game at all?
No, you just play as like regular Joes dressed up as Batman or the Joker.
You're like the guys that Batman's beating up in the Arkham series, just running around Gotham and
yeah, Yeah,
Sounds pretty cool.
It's pretty funny. It's great. You should definitely look it up. But yeah, that's my number 5 pick. So, Chad, why don't you give us your?
All right, I picked for my number 5 spot Persona 4 Golden for the PlayStation Vita. It came out in July of 2008, originally on the PS2. I didn't experience it until probably mid 2012. It launched in February 2012 on the Vita, the sadly failed PlayStation Portable that I was absolutely obsessed with, and I really still am obsessed with it. But I was kind of like, I played through the main launch titles, and there wasn't a whole lot of games on the system. There were good games, but there wasn't a whole lot. And this game, just everybody talked about it, and I am not an anime fan to start, and I'm also not a JRPG fan. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do it. Maybe I get into it, maybe not. I ended the game with 120 hours into it, and I am now a JRPG fan and an anime fan because of this game. I mean, it's really it. Have you guys ever played it? It's amazing.
Can't say that I have.
Okay, so basically, it's a, and it's gonna sound really lame. I'm telling you straight up.
Well, it's full disclosure. We worked with a guy who was super obsessed with anime and stuff, like so much so that he went and saw like an anime hologram in concert, like in New York.
Hey, that sounded cool.
But he was majorly obsessed with the Persona games, so I have like a general idea, but like, yeah, give us the details.
So basically, let me preface this by saying that I started with this game, Persona 4 Golden, and I played Persona 5. I have not played anything backwards beyond Persona 4. Okay. But in Persona 4 and Persona 5, you play as a Japanese high school student. And specifically in 4, what we're talking about, you're like a big city boy that gets transported out to the country for a year. And you're like in this totally lame little town in Japan. And you go to school, okay?
Okay.
You go to class every day. You take tests.
This is critically acclaimed?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
All right, we're good.
So you go to class, and people start ending up dead, murdered, okay? And it becomes your job to figure out how and why they're being murdered. And you find out that there's somebody throwing people into TVs, and you go into the TV world, and that's where the dungeon crawling, turn-based combat happens.
That's cool.
I got to be honest, man. Totally not my game. I'm not a JRPG guy. I never have been. But this game really sunk its claws into me. Absolutely sunk its claws into me. And it's just something cool about being a Japanese high school student. I don't know, that's investigating murders.
Yeah.
It's absolutely amazing. I would recommend it to absolutely anyone, and I will play every Persona game that comes out. I'm hoping that they remake Persona 3 because that's supposed to be the best one, but it's only on the PlayStation 3, and I think that playing Persona 4 on the Vita was like a major part of it being so special to me, the portability of it. So I'm hoping that they bring it to the Switch, or Sony comes out with another handheld and launches a remake of it. But that is a
Sony handheld. That would be a big reveal.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like they're not going to let that market space just be eaten alive by Nintendo. I feel like they're stirring something in the shadows, whether it's, another Vita / PSP. There was like a leak that showed that they were maybe working on something that was similar to the Switch with controllers that came off the screen on the side. So
yeah,
I don't know. We'll see.
It's hard. The Switch just like demolished that whole entire portion of everything.
Right. Because it really kind of, it is a handheld, but it's also a home console too. And it runs like a home console. It doesn't run like a PS5 or a PS4, but it runs better than any Nintendo console that's come out in the past decade. So
that definitely would be interesting. Do you think that even though the Vita and what was the other PlayStation? Yeah, even after their kind of like abysmal like existences, do you think they would still?
Yeah, I think the PSP definitely did not have an abysmal performance. The PS Vita did, but it's entirely Sony's fault. They didn't really support it the way that they should have supported it. They didn't support it like they did the PSP. They kind of launched it with awesome games, and then that was pretty much it. And they had a good game that came out. Sony specifically, there were even some games like that they didn't put on there. That, like, there was like an Uncharted like puzzle game that came out right around the Vita time, and they put it on like iOS and Android and not the Vita. I was like, okay, maybe you could support your handheld that's, you know, failing miserably, but
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the PSP, that was, I mean, I remember lots of people having one of those, and also they kind of use them as like juiced up early versions of an iPhone because they put their movies on there. They're watching movies, their music. Because I remember, you know, someone that I worked with, he showed me, he's like, dude, like, look at everything I have on here and like what I can do. Like, he was just watching movies and all that stuff. And at the time, I mean, that was definitely 2006, 7-ish era. You know, that was ahead of the curve there.
Oh, for sure, yeah. And it really became popular. It drug out its lifeline because it became really popular with emulators. People started putting emulators on there, and that just like, you know, and I think they're still popular today for running emulators. And the Vita was like difficult to get hacked for emulators, so it took a couple years, and I can run them there now too. But I love my Vita, still have it, still play it.
Dang.
I mean,
Nice. While you're talking about Persona 4, well, we got a couple comments. First, our good friend, the Bushman himself, Tim, aka Bim.
Bimbo.
He says Battle Tanks on Nintendo 64 tied with Hydro Thunder on the 64.
Dang.
Not bad. I wasn't a Nintendo guy after Super NES, so I wouldn't know, but hey, to each their own, I guess. And then PM Fusion's back as a fan of Persona 4, and he said they released Persona 4 Golden on Steam. So
they did, and it actually looks really. I kind of wanted to replay it because they really up-resed it a lot, at least from what it was on the Vita, and it looks really, really good. But I don't know if I can sink another 120 hours into a game.
That is an incredible amount of time.
Yeah, it is.
But the entire time you were talking about Persona, all I could think of was this video that I stumbled on. I think it was on Nexpo's YouTube channel, which we all know I'm a huge fan of Nexpo and the creepy, weird ARG. And
shout out Nexpo.
Yeah, hey, this video is brought to you by Nexpo. If you're listening, please come on our show. I love you.
Be Mike's friend.
But no, he had a video about some like creepy pasta anime game called Doki Doki Literature Club. And the entire time you were talking, if you were seeing me like typing and looking off screen, I was like, I couldn't remember what it was called. I had to like figure it out. But yeah, he has a really, really great video deep diving into how creepy and weird Doki Doki Literature Club is. So I recommend checking that out. Because it's super weird and dark.
It is weird. It is weird for sure. Yeah, I think that where they did Persona's very grounded, if that makes any sense. When I'm talking about fighting shadows in a TV world, it's somewhat grounded as far as anime goes, I feel. So
oh man, that's great. Well, Nick, what you got for your number 5?
Man, you know, I'm hoping I'm trying to figure out if our lists are going to be very different or if they're going to start like converging down a few here. I'm not sure. But for my number 5, and this was a late move up out of honorable mentions. But Spyro, the series, the entire like kind of franchise, but I will settle on the third one, Year of the Dragon. Just because I think everyone's familiar with Spyro, but basically you're a purple dragon. It's a platformer. Super fun, not too complicated, but definitely challenging platformer. Like you will get angry or just frustrated with not being able to get something. And it's it's a little bit of puzzle they got in there. But just the story's good. It's fun. I love the worlds, because they were kind of open world, pretty early on platformer, but you explored. And there's just tons of secrets to find. And the combo of just the way they designed it with like the voice acting, but then also just kind of non-voice nods, kind of like that Lego Star Wars feel where they don't actually speak like the first one. But I just sunk tons of hours on that on the PlayStation 1 and 2, I do believe. But yeah, that's definitely a favorite of mine. Big nostalgia. I was very happy that they reignited it onto the PlayStation 4. Bundled that nicely up for me. I still do play that from time to time. I would like to 100% them. Now that the achievements and all that is there on the PS4 where they weren't before. I do remember playing them, especially the first one where it was like, I really don't know what I'm trying to achieve here. I'm just trying to get to the end of this game, wherever that is. It wasn't as apparent, especially because there was no internet and we couldn't like search, oh, how do I get past this? You had to ask somebody how to do it. So, but I definitely know I sunk tons of hours into that and just had a lot of fun playing it and still do. So it definitely earned its way into my top 5.
Yeah, those games are fantastic, and that kind of broke Insomniac Games onto the scene, and they've far surpassed Spyro in my opinion. But that's definitely it's a great first game for a studio like them, and it kind of hurt my soul a little bit when they went over to Xbox for an exclusive game, and I was like, oh no, and then they came back for PlayStation or for Spider-Man. And I was like, oh, phew. But yeah, I think Spider-Man, if I had to put my money anywhere, that's what they should be making from now on because they're just fantastic at it.
Yeah, and I'm just super happy that platformers are coming back, and I think in a big way, even with things like Fallen Order and stuff like that, because to me, I don't know, 2010 till 2018, like they were just gone. Right, I don't know. Yeah. At least they weren't popular, and I really appreciate platformers and the simplicity of them. But also how they offer is gameplay.
Right.
Yeah.
Different sort of skill set than like a first person shooter.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
So did you guys ever like buy strategy guides for games back in the day?
Yeah.
Yeah. I actually have one that for a game that's on my list that we'll get to later, but I don't want to spoil it. But it's relatively new. Like very new. so I still buy them.
Nice. Yeah, I remember one of the games on my list too. I used to do that like back in middle schoolish or so. Those were the days. And back when like the game boxes or cases like came with the actual like insert book in it, and that like either told you lore or like
tips and had like the enemies in it and stuff. That was so cool, man. And that's what made me, and we kind of didn't talk about our honorable mentions, but one of my honorable mentions was The Witcher 3, and The Witcher 3 came packed like that. If you bought the launch copy of it, it came with like a CD and a book and all kind. I was like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. Like I haven't seen this since like the 90s.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I think you talked about that the last time.
Yeah, I might have.
Which reminds me, Blizzard PC games, like when I bought Overwatch or I forget what other game, but like they came with these cool notepads in them, and like I used them for work, Nick, a lot. And it was just like an orc and like whatever other characters are on their notepads, and I was just like writing notes about deeds and crap on like this stupid Blizzard notepad.
Well, anyways, the 2000s were special because you had the video games on the shelf, but then there's the strategy guide. So like there was like video games and books, and there's just all this like physical material that you could get because games were getting complicated enough to where you needed like a novel of a strategy guide. Like these things were thick, and then and the games were in need of that if you were really into it.
But yeah, I feel like I bought probably, I don't want to say I bought as many strategy guides as I did games because that's probably not true, but I bought a lot and I kind of miss them. But I think like Game Facts coming out in the early 2000s kind of ruined strategy guides because then you could just get online and read people's walkthroughs right on there, and that kind of dwindled them down. But it's definitely like something I don't even think they sell at GameStop anymore. Like it's just a lost art, those strategy guides.
Yeah. Well, they don't sell much at GameStop anymore. Just period.
That's valid.
Oh, man. No, that's a good pick, Nick. I like it.
Thank you.
So moving on, we're into number 4 now, and my number 4 is also a series of actually 3 different series. I couldn't really decide on one, but I chose all of these for a reason, because the gameplay is very similar. It's just, change the skin and the lore, and that's pretty much it. But number 4, coming in at number 4, we got the Batman Arkham series, the Uncharted series, and the Last of Us series, even though I only played the first one.
Wow, I don't feel bad about my series picks now, because
there you go.
He 3 games and
3 different series that are unrelated.
I'm reworking my
from
list.
the same
Hold
studio.
on. I'm reworking all of this. This is changing.
Breaking the rules.
Crash Bandicoot's in my number 5 with Spyro. Then
there you go.
I was gonna ask you about Crash, because I loved Crash. That was such a great game.
Yeah.
But yeah, these like third person shooter mixed with like platformer mixed with action RPG style game that came out here late PlayStation 3, early PlayStation 4 life cycle. Just a super fun style of game for me to play. I loved the Batman games. I'm just a big fan of Batman in general, so being able to play those games, try to solve mystery in Arkham Asylum, and seeing all the cool Easter eggs, and like just getting to sit on little perches and pick bad guys off one by one, Batman stealth style, was super cool. And then you progress into I believe Arkham City was the next one, where you have all of the city to just glide around and traverse and get into shenanigans as Batman has. Super fun game, really deep with the lore and really deep with the Easter eggs. The fighting was amazing. Uncharted, I've talked about a lot, and The Last of Us a lot on the show, but you have Tomb Raider meets Indiana Jones and Uncharted. Again, third-person shooter. The mechanics were great. It threw in the platforming elements, climbing around the environments. And this game was also one of the first games that made me pay attention to the voice acting and the cutscenes, like in the next gen of games. This put Nolan North on the map for me as a voice actor. That dude is like a brilliant man, and I wish that he could voice act every character in every game, because he's so good.
It seemed like for a while there he was, but
yeah. But like Naughty Dog really, kind of up the ante here with their storytelling in games, and you kind of saw that like bleed out into the industry, where the story started to become a central focus more so than just having good game mechanics or good graphics or whatever. And then The Last of Us, another Naughty Dog masterpiece. So it has all the same points as Uncharted, but they had such a cool take on a post-apocalyptic type game. You're not just fighting any regular type of zombie. It's like this weird fungus that takes over the body, and just the stuff they did visually with the creatures you're facing and fighting, along with the environments and how the world looked being reclaimed by nature, was super cool. And the storytelling again was just next level. And at the time, even now, it's the story from the Last of Us game, the first one at least. I didn't play the second one, but it was better than like 70% of movies or shows that I've ever watched. And when I beat that game, I was emotionally exhausted in like the best way. And just the fact that it was hard to get through just the opening sequence of that game without like getting hit right in the emotions. It was so strong. But just that style of game again, where you have the heavy storytelling elements with the great mechanics, and that like third person action RPG shooter platformer style. So some other games in that genre that I'm currently playing or want to play in the future would be Jedi: The Fallen Order. I'm still working my way through that, but it fits right in there. Same thing. And I really want to get into the Horizon Zero Dawn game because it looks phenomenal, and I've always wanted to play it. I'm just waiting for it to go on super sale on Steam because I'm super cheap. But
I think it's probably pretty cheap, isn't it?
Just buy it.
Yeah, you really should. It's worth whatever money it's on there for now, right?
Yes. But I have Arkham Knight and Arkham Origins in my Steam library. Those are the two from the Arkham series that I haven't played yet. But
oh wow,
yeah.
And I mean, I'm not upset about Origins, but Knight, I can't believe you haven't played Knight yet.
Yeah, I had gotten that for PlayStation 4 right when our first child was born, and that was when the needle of League of Legends was inserted into my arm. So that was a game where I played for like 45 minutes or an hour and then just never picked up again because of my crippling addiction. So I picked that up on the last Steam sale. It was like $2 or $3 or something. So I was like, well, I'll just grab that and play it.
We're gonna break you of this addiction eventually. It's eventually gonna happen, and you're gonna get back to where you belong.
Yeah, well, I got my fingers crossed. The ranked season just started, so
it's always just starting.
Yeah, it seems like it.
Yes, but yes, that's my number 4 pick. It was kind of a cheap pick because I had so much in there, but I couldn't decide, so I just threw it all in. So, Chad, what you got for number 4?
So, number 4, Mike kind of stole my thunder here, but I picked a specific game out of one of those series, and it is Uncharted 4: Thief's End. Now, I went back and forth, I'm not going to lie, a lot between putting The Last of Us here or Uncharted. And for me, I just feel like Uncharted, in my personal opinion, outdid The Last of Us a little bit. And I don't know if that's just because of my tie to the characters over so many years, 3-4 games that they had, including the Vita one. But I know that neither of you have. Yeah, sorry. I'm always going to bring the Vita up.
Yeah.
I got to be honest, though, the Uncharted on the Vita, I think, is better than the first Uncharted game. And I don't think anyone would probably argue that with me. But
spicy.
So, A Thief's End, I'm not going to get too into it because
I bought it for like $5 because there's a billion of them because they came with the PS4 launch or whatever.
Yep.
I haven't played it yet, but I need to play that. I keep forgetting I own it.
Right. Yeah. I know that Mike hasn't played it either, so I don't want to talk too much about it, but I just want to touch a little bit on. I feel that it's just the culmination of Uncharted altogether. It's all the good elements of Uncharted. It's all the good action pieces from throughout the scene, done better, done more beautifully. The story, I think. So it had kind of a damaged development cycle because Amy Hennig, who wrote and directed Uncharted 1, 2, 3, and I think she worked on the Vita one, actually left this project like, I don't want to say halfway through it, but pretty decent way through it, to the point where if you go back and watch the original teaser for Uncharted 4, it makes no sense if you've played this game.
So basically, Uncharted 4 got Zack Snydered. That's what you're saying?
Yes. Yeah. It's a great analogy.
It got Justice Leagued.
Right. Yep. There you go.
Very popular trend.
Yeah. So it is, and I will say that obviously I haven't played her version of the game because it doesn't exist, but Neil Druckmann came over and took it over, and he's the director for The Last of Us. So he's obviously capable, and he changed something in the story that I think changed it for the better and made some more emotional parts of the story that probably wouldn't have been there if Amy continued writing the story that she wanted to write. But it's no short of amazing. I think it's the perfect topper to the Uncharted series. I think it ends beautifully. Or I should say not the Uncharted series, because I think they're going to continue the Uncharted series. I should say the Nathan Drake story. But I think that it's just absolutely an incredible, and it doesn't end the way that you think it's going to end. It's just, it's perfect in my opinion.
Nice. I don't know if I can pick a favorite between Uncharted and The Last of Us.
Yeah, it's tough, man. I went back and forth. I went back and forth between probably putting Uncharted 2 Uncharted 4 or The Last of Us in this spot, and I didn't want to flood my list with Naughty Dog games and just be a total Naughty Dog fanboy, even though I am.
Yeah.
You know, I wanted to pick one game, and I think for my money, even though I'm like a huge defender of The Last of Us 2, and you saw probably my first article I wrote on Downright Creepy was defending The Last of Us 2 essentially. So I still think Uncharted 4 did not get topped by The Last of Us 2, but
Nice.
that could just be the tie to the characters. You know, it's just
Yeah.
been years of Nathan Drake and Sully and Elena and all them. So
So I should drop playing Fallen Order and play Uncharted 4.
yes,
Okay, cool.
Having
I
not
got you.
played either of them to completion, I would agree with that. Just because it's Uncharted.
definitely. Yeah.
But yeah, your point is a good point. Nathan Drake, such a good character.
Oh man, he really is, and I get mad when people just call it like Man Raider, you know, like they just stole Tomb Raider and put a male character in it. But now, if you look at like the newer Tomb Raider games, they're just copying Uncharted.
Yeah.
So you know, so they took what was kind of there with Tomb Raider and just made it significantly better, in my opinion. Their storytelling well beyond anything Tomb Raider has to offer, in my opinion.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to the next Lady Charted game. That was a terrible joke. Wow.
Hey, there is a Lady Charted. There is a Lady Charted. They came out with Lost Legacy where you play as a female. So there you go.
Wow. It's very progressive.
Very.
Yeah, but Joel is a good character too. But like, I think you're correct though. There just wasn't enough time with Joel. You know?
Yeah, and I think that's what it is. I think The Last of Us. Don't get me wrong. The Last of Us deserves to be on this spot for me. I think it's fantastic. It's just like I said, just the years of experience I had with the other characters. The Last of Us is a very good story together. If they never made a sequel to The Last of Us, it would have been perfect. I still think it is perfect. Some people obviously disagree with that, violently disagree with that. But
while we're still on, The Last of Us, one point I forgot to make during my number 4 was even Uncharted had this too, but like the multiplayer in The Last of Us was so underrated and underappreciated. It was so cool. And looking back at it, now that I'm like a huge fan of esports, I watch esports all the time, but The Last of Us multiplayer was built perfectly for esports. It was just too soon. Like,
right. Yep. I think they're really the Uncharted multiplayer and The Last of Us are very underrated, and a lot of people got into them, and I can get it because when you're buying a Naughty Dog game, you're not necessarily looking for multiplayer, but it's there and it's really, really good, and a lot of people just skipped right over it.
Yeah,
and it's kind of sad.
The thing about The Last of Us is it carried over the crafting element from the single player, and the matches were slow paced enough to be able to follow as a spectator and have somebody like explain what's going on in the match. I don't know. It just too soon. I wish that would have come out like now where your esports is kind of blowing up and becoming more mainstream and accepted, because I would love to watch The Last of Us esports would be great.
Yeah, that would be cool.
That's how I felt about I'm pretty sure it was Assassin's Creed Brotherhood. I don't know, one of the early Assassin's Creeds, the first multiplayer that they had for Assassin's Creed. I played it and I was like, this seems ahead of its time a little bit and would have done really well, in a different period, because it was super fun. It was fast, and it was a lot like World of Warcraft, like arenas. It was just brutal and it was cool. But I think that was another one of those things where it was just wrong place, wrong time.
Yeah, there's a lot of a wrong place, wrong time, and also wrong game in a way, because Splinter Cell had a really cool multiplayer too, but nobody, it's like if they get the single player game, they're just not touching the multiplayer, which is odd.
Yeah.
But
some of those single player games just had, that just just quietly snuck in the early multiplayer. Like it just worked a bunch of times and no one really knew about it.
Exactly.
Yep. So that's all I got to say about that. Yep. Yes, Nick, number 4. What you got for us?
Number 4. Okay, so this is a game a game series I've sunk a lot of time into, and I hope to sink a lot more time into as they are remastering and about to roll out a 4th one officially. So the Age of Empires series, very top-notch game for me. I've definitely played it since 1997 when it came out, maybe 1998 when the first one came out. I think a friend on the bus told me hey, play this game, and I got a super old 1992 Toshiba laptop that was a brick, installed it on there and just play the crap out of it on this tiny screen. And I just can't believe I had that much fun on that piece of junk of hardware, playing one game, and it was Age of Empires 1. And then eventually 2, which basically murdered that computer because I would do custom matches and the computer would crash. But for those of you that don't know, Age of Empires is a real-time strategy game, one of the earliest and best in its category. Kind of sets the par for everything else when it comes to RTS, whether it's StarCraft or Warcraft or any of those. It all really kind of bleeds from Age of Empires, but starts off in the kind of ancient times. We're talking kind of Babylon, ancient Egypt, creeping up into early Roman. And it's just a lot of fun. And it was simple and straightforward back in the time. And over the years, they've just made it better and better. And I would, if I were to pick one, it would be Age of Empires 2. It's the most kind of well-rounded. I got into 3 a little bit, and then I kind of teetered off on 3, probably for a combination of life-changing reasons, and then just it wasn't as spectacular as kind of 2 was, but definitely a lot of hours sunk into those games. Oh, and the campaigns were really good because I'm a dork and I enjoyed learning about history that way. But then multiplayer is a big hit. I wasn't really that much into multiplayer, but people play the crap out of multiplayer, especially with the remastered versions that are out, the definitive editions. But it's live on Steam. They're patching it almost weekly, and it's a pretty active community because that community stayed active for the past 20 years on 1 and 2, while they were kind of just fighting to keep them working across all the Microsoft operating systems. But
yeah, I definitely played quite a bit of Age of Empires, and I'm trying to remember which one it was, and I think it was 2. I don't remember because it was a really, really long time ago. But yeah, they're great games, man. I've never been a big strategy game guy, but that's the one strategy game that I got really into.
I mean, even 2 came out in 1999. So yeah, still 22 years ago.
Right.
But I mean, they did a good job on the definitive editions. They look good and they hold up well over the years. And they actually improved the gameplay, and they fixed bugs and improved logic. There's actually there's a couple AI settings. You can do the original AI, and then you can do the new AI, which is a lot more intelligent. So they're basically brand new games. And then 4 is coming out maybe this year late. I'm not sure. But
I definitely appreciate the remasters like that, especially if they're games that I played when I was a kid, because there's a pretty hefty amount of nostalgia in them. So I might have to check them out. I didn't even know they existed, the definitive editions.
Yeah, they've been slowly rolling those out for the past 2 years. 1, 2, 3 is on the way, but I think they're focusing on 4.
I was always so bad at RTS games, but I would love to just jump into Age of Empires and try to build my own little utopia.
Yeah. And
then I would get mad whenever my friend or whoever else, the AI, would come and attack me, and I'm like, just let me live in peace, you scoundrels.
That's why I didn't get into multiplayer a lot, especially, I mean, when I played it, 20 years ago, was because I just liked building against the AI and actually creating like the coolest little empire.
Yeah.
And making things aesthetically look sensible and work.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, they're, StarCraft's notorious for this. Like, no, there's no rules. Like, they just do the most ridiculous things to win that game. It's all numbers and timing. Takes a lot of the aesthetic fun out of it, I guess.
Yeah. There was a really cool Lord of the Rings RTS that I played. What was it? Battle for Middle Earth?
Yeah,
Very
good. Two or something like that.
Yeah.
Oh,
very
that was
good.
Such a fun game.
I miss that. They need to remaster that for sure.
Yeah,
That one out of the junk drawer.
I've definitely I've had a recent itch for a real-time strategy game, and I was actually looking at Total War Shogun, maybe it's called. I was looking for like a samurai one, and I think that's the name of it, Total War Shogun.
You played Total War games, right, Nick?
Yeah, so they just can't. Well, yeah, Total War Shogun and Shogun 2 are the older ones, but they just came out with Three Kingdoms, which is like the most newest one. I think it's debatable if it's like the best one, but
yeah, I kind of read that like Shogun wasn't that good, so, and I think it's a little bit older.
Yeah,
but I think it's still pretty well popular because it kept popping up on every list that I was looking for these games on. So might dive into it, but I might have to get on Age of Empires definitive edition, because
they go on sale and they're pretty. I think they're only like $20 anyways, and you can get like both of them for 30 maybe. I mean, it's pretty. They're not, they're pretty reasonable. And that reminds me, the Middle of Earth one in college, I just lugged around all my like physical copies of my computer games wherever I went, like from every place I lived. And then every so often I'd be like, I'm going to try and install this on Windows here. And it would sometimes work and I would sometimes be able to play them. But I think they're getting a lot better about keeping that stuff alive.
Yeah.
For people.
It's a good pick. I figured a game like that, or I wonder if Civ will make your list. I don't know. But anyways, we'll get there.
It's probably as likely as League making your number one.
We shall see. We have 3 more picks, so let's keep it rolling. Coming in at number 3 for me is Pokemon Yellow.
Dang.
And Gold for the Game Boy Color.
Okay.
Man, dude, if you guys knew how much I loved Pokemon when I was in middle school and even high school, I'm not ashamed to admit it. Oh, geez. I mean, this went for the games or the trading cards. Like both. I couldn't get enough. I think we already talked about one time, like for the trading cards, they had like little leagues or whatever at Borders. Like I think it was every Tuesday night where you could go and like play against other dorks like you. And like they even had these like little books where you could like, for every time you won, you got like a little stamp, and then once you got so many stamps, you get like a badge or something. But yeah, one of my earliest gaming memories actually is my parents going like halvesies with me to buy a yellow Game Boy Color that came with Pokemon Yellow. And whenever I got that yellow Game Boy, dude, I was so obsessed. I remember like, I mean, everyone faked being sick when they were younger to stay home, but like I did it way too much so I could play Pokemon on my Game Boy. I'd be like, oh, I have cancer, Mom. I can't go to school.
You were allowed so many days before truancy had to come from the States.
True.
So
I tried,
like, right.
I tried to take advantage, but my parents they caught on pretty quick.
My mom let me max it out every year. She's great.
Nice lady.
Yeah.
But yeah, when Pokemon Gold released, same thing. I was super obsessed with it. And this was the first and only Pokemon game that I've ever 100%ed. Like I literally caught them all. It took a lot of trading with my friends and my brother, but like
I literally caught them all.
I caught them all, bro. But yeah, I kept playing the Pokemon games like all the way up through Ruby and Sapphire, I think on the Advance or whatever. But not much past that. And occasionally I would either like somehow acquire a Game Boy, like either like somebody I knew was getting rid of one, or I'd go to GameStop and buy one for like $20 or whatever. And I would pick up an old Pokemon game and I'd play it for like, a week. And then, some like years later, I'd find a random Game Boy in some like file cabinet drawer. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's where that went. But yeah, every so often I get the itch to go back. I've even played some of the ROMs on the PC, but it just doesn't stick like it used to. But like I want it to, just like bring back those memories. But yeah, I guess I have another point, but we'll get into that. We have actually a question from a listener that this kind of applies to. But when we were talking about strategy guides earlier, like I used to buy the strategy guides for the Pokemon games so I could like learn what areas and what towns I had to go to catch certain ones and all that crazy stuff. But did either of you guys get into the Pokemon games?
Yeah, so I definitely got into the Pokemon games, and recently, I don't know if you knew this or not, but Pokemon Yellow was remade for the Switch, and I'm talking remade from the ground up.
What?
And it's called Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee, and it's a remaster, or not a remaster, it's a complete ground up remake of Pokemon Yellow. And it is absolutely amazing. Now, there's caveats to that. It's on the Switch, which you don't have a Switch, right, Mike?
He's about to, but a PC.
He's about to, yeah. It's on the Switch. They added in some elements of Pokemon Go, which you can avoid by playing in handheld mode. So basically, when you're catching a Pokemon, you're doing the Pokemon Go thing where you're throwing the ball at it and trying to get the circle instead of fighting it, which kind of sucks. Yeah. But you can avoid the actually moving the motion controller. If you play in handheld mode, then you can just tap a button. But outside of that, it's a complete remake of it, and it's absolutely, it's like nostalgic city because you remember all this stuff, but it doesn't look anything like it did. It's not like the 8-bit towns that you're walking through. It's like 3D towns now. It's really cool. It's definitely worth. I don't know if it's worth picking up a Switch for, but it's definitely worth it if you're going to pick that up in Breath of the Wild, because those games easily sell the Switch for pretty much anybody, I think.
Nice. I do remember when Pokemon Go came out, like I went real hardcore into that. Like, I don't know if Nick remembers, but like going on wellness walks at work and like having my phone out and trying to catch Pokemon while we're walking during our breaks, or like taking my lunch break and going over to Price Park. Walking around, hatching those eggs and catching those dang
that place was hopping.
Oh man, Price Park was jam-packed, man. You never seen it like that.
It was insane.
That was a blast though.
The poor regulars that went to that park.
Oh, they hated it. Like, what? Why all of a sudden did I wake up one day and there's 300 people standing in the park looking at their phones?
Yeah, and like 200 of those people like clearly have not seen the light of day in like 15 years. Oh man, but yeah, Pokemon will always have a dear place in my heart, and I always find myself as time goes on like getting the craving to get back into the world of Pokemon. And
yeah, it's baby's first RPG. It's like that's what most people get. If people are into RPGs, they probably started at Pokemon. So
yeah, and that even extends to the trading cards. Like, full disclosure, Ryan, our chief moderator on the Discord channel, I'm calling him out because I'm not going down alone. But even a couple years ago, we bought some Pokemon card decks and would like play against each other because we're that dorky. But I've since donated all my Pokemon cards, new and old, to my nephew, so I can't play them anymore. If I could just do that to my League of Legends account.
Yeah, man, that's the path we take, Nick. We got to get him to donate it.
No,
it's like flushing it. Like I said before, it's like flushing the cigarettes down the toilet.
That's right. Riot needs to come out with that stupid Blizzard authenticator keychain.
Just throw it.
To bind my account to that and then run the authenticator over with my car.
Yeah, but you have two accounts.
Oh
I
yeah,
have
see?
more than
every,
two.
like
See?
every addict.
I have way more than
he's got
2
some
accounts.
You throw one authenticator away, he's got another one stashed in the
Yeah.
cupboard. He's got another one under his pillow.
We catch him
Spend,
again.
like-
We're like, Mike, what are you doing? We thought you quit.
Yeah.
Why do you keep breaking our hearts like this?
I just have like $400 worth of authenticators like just scattered throughout my house.
Secret hiding places that Nick and I can't find.
That's
Oh
right.
my god.
It's the sad truth. But anyways, that's my number 3. So Nick, did you say you played any of the Pokemon stuff like when you were younger?
No, I mean, I wasn't, it's a weird thing to say, but I wasn't cool enough, I don't think, back then to play Pokemon. That was just a niche I was just definitely not cool enough for. I don't think I understood it enough or financially had the interest to get into it. So I don't know.
Sounds like
it never clicked. I had like cards that I would like probably really idiotically trade with people. I don't know.
Nice. It sounds like me and you and Ryan need to make a trip over to like Walmart or something. Pick up a few decks and then just have some battles.
Can't we just play Pokemon Go? I'm a higher level than you in that. So
Can
let's
you
do that.
can you battle in Pokemon Go yet?
Yeah,
Oh, you
I'm
can?
pretty sure.
Oh.
I don't have any
Oh.
friends to play with, so
That's kind of what I
don't
kind of
know.
that's kind of what I missed about, like, at least when I started to write when it came out, and
Yeah,
like
same.
I would have liked to like fight the Pokemon before I caught them instead of
Yeah.
that might just
Or,
be
like-
my nostalgia talking.
I don't think they had trading. I don't know if I haven't played since like the beginning, like you said, Chad, but like that was one thing that I wish that they had at the start was being able to trade with other people. But
I think they added
Yeah.
all that since then. You can battle and trade now.
yeah. But playing Pokemon Go with Nick now is unfair because he literally lives like at a Pokemon stop.
If I was
Yeah.
one house north, like down the street, just one house over, I would be just able to spin one from my basement.
Oh man, that's great, yeah.
And then
Where-
there's 2 gyms like in my walking distance of like walking the dog. So this summer, I caught up some levels from when I started.
Nice.
I've since teetered off in the winter here.
Oh no, my fireplace went out.
Uh-oh.
Forgot to put a log on.
Get it? Log on? Oh.
Hey, well, that was terrible. So moving on, Chad, what's your number 3?
All right, my number 3 is Castlevania Symphony of the Night.
It's an epic
Now-
name.
Yes, it really is. Now, Castlevania Symphony of the Night is kind of the game that broke all the Castlevania rules in a way. Typically, you play as a Belmont, you're on the trail of Dracula, gameplay is kind of slow, and you're extremely heavy. And if you get hit, you like fall a ridiculous amount back. Like, it's just kind of a pain, and it just wasn't really for me. I played them, they were okay. For whatever reason, and I don't know if it was because it was on the PS1, I decided to give Symphony of Night another shot. So I picked it up thinking I knew exactly what I was getting, another Castlevania game, that's going to be slow, and I was completely wrong. So it breaks all the rules. You don't play as a Belmont, you play as Dracula's son Alucard. The game, really simply put, for the 90s and even for today, is absolutely beautiful. It's all pixel art, which is a lost art style in gaming because it's really, really expensive. And so on top of all these things that it's breaking and how beautiful it is, the gameplay is just stellar. It's absolutely stellar. And even today, even if you have never played this game, if you go play it today, you're going to love it. It's super
PM Fusion
quick.
likes it.
Yep.
Right.
We're lining up,
mean-
me and PM Fusion here, I think.
You guys are like soul gaming mates.
Yep.
Wow, that
So-
was weird.
So it's just he's snappy, he's quick, the platforming's amazing. It's got the typical Metroidvania, fill out the map and you can only go to certain places once you've gotten a certain piece of gear or whatever. It's absolutely amazing, man. And I think that it's kind of, these games are a very big lost art, and I think it's because they're just not as aesthetically pleasing in 2D side-scrolling games. It's just that pixel art is just it's amazing, but it's really, really expensive to do, allegedly. So that's why nobody does it anymore.
What console was this for, or platform?
PlayStation 1.
Okay.
So it's on literally everything now. You could get it on your Android phone. You could get it on iOS. You can get it on literally anything. I played it. Here we go again. But I played it a couple years ago on the Vita, and it's perfect on the Vita, like I thought it would be. But it's really good. And kind of the cool thing about it was there's a part of the game that's almost entirely missable. You might not even know it's there. Especially this game came out in the 90s, 1997, I think, March of 1997 it released. You can avoid almost half the game if you don't do a certain amount of tasks, and that gives you access to the inverted castle, which is literally everything that you just filled out, this huge map, this huge castle, upside down with new enemies and everything. It literally almost doubles the game.
Oh, wow.
And back in 1997, I don't know that I did the inverted castle. I think my first time doing the inverted castle was like maybe mid 2000s when I played through it again and knew a little bit more about it. So I like games that are like that have like multiple different endings, and it brought in a lot of RPG elements that were first seen in Simon's Quest. So it's just a very complete game. It's amazing.
So let's knock out some of old PM Fusion's comments here. He says Castlevania Symphony of the Night is one of my all-time favorite games, and the only thing that held it back was the PlayStation 1 controller.
yeah, that's understandable.
But yeah, and then the other thing that I was thinking of, you say you're a fan of pixel art, eh?
Hey, yeah.
You know where there's some cool pixel art.
Yes.
Of maybe even us, yourself,
Yeah.
Nick, me. If you head over to our Discord, shameless plug for our Discord. One of our friends, Nick's friends, Bianca, dude, she whipped up some amazing pixel art versions of our ugly mugs, in which we use as our avatars on Discord. So yeah, go check them out. Bianca is a great artist, and she does a lot of cool things for us, and we love it and we appreciate it. And
shout out OG BB8 blah. OG BB8 Bianca.
There you go. Yes.
I loved my avatar. I'm not gonna lie. My face is a little long for whatever reason, but I can get over it.
I think if my face and Nick's face didn't have a beard, we would probably have long faces
too. Okay. All right. I feel a little bit better. My pride isn't too damaged.
lack of beard in the angle of the picture.
Yeah, I think that was it. The angle of the picture for sure.
You're taking a quick selfie for Mike for no reason. Mike's like, "Hey, send me a picture of you in your tank top and headband." Okay.
It was literally, "Hey, could you send me a picture of you in your tank top with your bandana and your sunglasses on?" I was like, sure.
This is a normal
probably
request.
Really weird if your wife walked in while you're
taking a selfie. No, it's for Mike, I swear.
Yeah, I promise. I apologize if I caused any friction there. But yeah, go check it out.
Yeah, definitely. So, Nick, have you ever played any of the Castlevania games?
No, I have not. That's a little... I feel like there's a whole portion of kind of like that early PlayStation 90s gaming that kind of like slipped by me. I was playing Age of Empires. That was the issue.
Yeah, well, a lot of the Castlevania games are on NES and SNES. So I want to say that they probably came to PlayStation, but I think Symphony of the Night, or oh my gosh, I can't even say it. Symphony of the Night was the first one that came to the PlayStation exclusively. And if you're going to play one of them, you're going to play that one. Like that, in my opinion, it's the best. It's just, it breaks.
Can I play it on my phone?
Yes. Mhm.
I have a lot
Yeah.
of Google Play credit with all those.
There you
Hey,
go.
surveys, bro.
Go
You're
buy
in.
it
I have
right
like-
now.
I have like $24 in credit because of that stupid survey app, which, by the way, I forget what it's called. But if you use Google
Google
Play,
Rewards.
yes, get the Google Rewards app, and every so often it asks you like short surveys. You fill them out, and you get like anywhere from like 10 to 50 to 60 cents per survey, and over time, get a fat Google Play
There you
wallet.
go.
Oh, that was.
I don't know if you could
that
see
was
it 'cause-
crystal clear, man. That
Focus there. Oh, no.
Wow.
Can't do it.
Major fail.
Too
that's
much
gonna-
white.
That's gonna. Wow. I mean,
36.
so is the world, eh? No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, this part's
We'll
gonna be
average
great
it
for our
down.
audio version.
Yeah.
You're right.
Oh, we do audio? Never mind.
Yeah.
So I also, while I'm on Castlevania real quick, I also want to shout out the Castlevania anime on Netflix. It's
Dude, I was
absolutely
literally-
stellar. It's
I was
absolutely
about to
stellar.
ask you about that.
Yeah,
it's
same.
fantastic. And they did, that's probably for my money the best video game adaptation that's out right now. And I don't think really anything comes close. I haven't seen the Sonic movies, or Sonic movie rather. I heard it's good, but it's absolutely awesome. It's bloody. It's everything you want out of a Castlevania animated show.
Right. I think
$3 on Google Play. Castlevania Symphony of the Night.
Nice.
Worth every cent.
And the show has been in my Netflix watch list for some time now, but right after I just finished Attack on Titan for part 1 of season 4, so I will start Castlevania right now.
There you go.
Nice. Well,
Playing,
okay,
playing
why-
Symphony of the Night and watching the show. It's gonna be a perfect combo.
Let's finish the episode first, Nick, before you decide to
Aw.
watch
That's valid.
Castlevania.
That's
But,
valid.
yes.
I didn't finish my list though. Can I go now?
Speaking of, we're up to you, man. Number 3. What you got for us?
Number 3. This is a pretty well-known game. I shouldn't have to explain it too much. But Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. The PlayStation 2 did not, track play hours. I wish I knew it did, because endless hours of play in this game. Now, outside of playtime, also just story-wise, it was just a great combination of all the classic tropes and different movies from the 90s, and that entire culture of just the urban LA basically, and the LA riots, and just they tied in so much of like the real world into it. Then from like a gaming aspect, the map was just unbelievably massive, and the way they led you through the map, because you start off in basically the ghetto of San Andreas, right? And you're only get a part of this giant city. But before you even get to go to the rest of the city, they ditch you in hillbilly country outside of the city, and you have an entire different level of things to like get around and deal with. And the characters are just crazy that you encounter. There's aliens and just all the ridiculous things that you would expect out of Grand Theft Auto. But I don't know, there's just something about San Andreas that, full circle as you got all the way through the game, just the world was huge. The storytelling was great. It was basically like a very long movie by the time you got to the end of it. Great voice acting. I don't know. That one just very solidly is a classic for me. And I think at the time it was a little tricky for me to get my hands on it, because I was too young to buy it, and I was, no one was going to buy it for me. So I had to get creative in how I would obtain a copy of this. But yeah,
Nick's getting fake ideas to buy video games.
I will be honest. I did go to Europe and I bought it in Europe, but then
You went to Europe just to buy Grand Theft Auto.
I brought it back, and this is how I learned that their CD formats are completely different, like their plugs in the wall are, and that does not play on the PlayStation 2.
Oh man,
It was a really big fail. Good try,
what
but a big fail.
Fantastic story. My goodness.
That's amazing.
So,
Yeah.
full disclosure here, the trilogy of Grand Theft Auto games, and I'm talking Grand Theft Auto 3, Vice City, and San Andreas, literally just missed my list.
Okay.
Like they would be number 6. But I played probably the most on Grand Theft Auto 3 because that was just my game, man, and it's still my game. I beat it. I probably beat it every year at least.
Nice.
To this day.
To this day, yes.
Wow.
Yeah, I absolutely love it. The HD remakes came out, and the phone versions of them look amazing. And I remember, like, me and my buddy in school were really obsessed with Grand Theft Auto 3, and we were always trying to get to the different islands and stuff. And I remember him saying one time, man, I bet that, someday we're going to be able to play this on like a Game Boy or something. I was like, yeah, that's cool. And then when those came out on the phone, man, I'm sitting there playing. I'm like, he's right. He nailed it. So I loved Grand Theft Auto 3, loved Vice City, loved San Andreas, but San Andreas was kind of where it trailed off for me. I felt like there was maybe too much there, if that makes any sense whatsoever.
Yeah.
I feel like they just went too overboard. There's 3 different cities, but it's fantastic. It builds on everything that Grand Theft Auto 3 and Vice City, laid the groundwork for. It's just go ahead.
To your point, I can see that because that might have been another case of it was ahead of its time, right? They took a huge step forward and really just blew that game out, because that's still, obviously it's not like one of the largest games, obviously, because recently they've been going really balls to the wall as far as like how big games get these days. But for the time, it was certainly really thinking outside of the box. All the mini games there were in there, because you could play like pool, all the stuff. There's racing. It was all the games in one.
Right. And I think the main thing for me was like the eating and the weightlifting and that stuff. It became a little tedious at some points. But
dude, once you max it out, you just had to hit the gym once every couple days. You know, you got to stay sharp for the gang turf wars.
Yeah, right. I definitely need to go back and play it, because I do go back and play Grand Theft Auto 3 and Vice City all the time, and in San Andreas I probably haven't played since it originally came out. And I think I bought it as like the trilogy on my phone, so I might go back and play it on my iPad or something. But I have a deep obsession with Los Angeles, and specifically Los Angeles in the 90s.
Yeah.
So it's definitely right up my alley. And I don't know if that obsession came after it came out or not, or if it was around the same time. But the LA riot stuff in there, and the kind of the Rampart scandal, crooked cop stuff was right up my alley. So, that laying that groundwork of Los Santos in that game is what got me so amped for Grand Theft Auto 5. And we discussed this on my last episode. I watched the trailers every single day for that game, and I love that game. It's near and dear to my heart. It didn't make my list, but I dumped a ton of hours into Grand Theft Auto 5. And I think that it's kind of more, it's one city. I think it's San Andreas, plus or something. It feels better to me for whatever reason.
Grand Theft Auto 5 was definitely the maturation and or the modern version of San Andreas, right? It did it a lot better, especially better than 4.
Right.
And basically, that just further makes me think San Andreas was too ahead of its time there, as far as what they tried to achieve, because they did it well in 5.
Right. I think you nailed that on the head. I think it was ahead of its time, and coming from Vice City, it's massive compared to Vice City. Yeah. So it's definitely ahead of its time, but
Vice City was tons of fun. I just remember pissing off Area 51, and then there was a casino on Las Vegas Strip that they couldn't shoot you in. It was like bugged out, but you had to
Yep.
get on like the roof, and there would just be tanks and helicopters and everything just like coming down the strip and just trying to nuke you.
Yeah, it's definitely great. And then they had the cheat codes where you could put like every pedestrian was violent towards you, and then you could put on like the smoke stacks from the LA riot portion of the game, and it just looked like mayhem, and everyone's chasing you. It's super fun. But yeah, I think Grand Theft Auto 5 did it better, and for my money, I wish that, and I hope that this is the case. I hope that Grand Theft Auto 6 comes out and builds on the Grand Theft Auto switchable character thing, but gives us one character that's a police officer trying to bust the other two characters. So you're playing as a police officer and two criminals. And I think that it would make, you can make some awesome story moments with that, I think.
That sounds interesting.
Some awesome news moments with that, maybe.
Right.
That can get dicey.
Yeah. I'm dying for a cop game, man. Like I get that we're kind of like in a different time now, and crooked cops are kind of like taboo because they're, that everybody feels that they're crooked. But there's just something enticing to me about crooked cops, specifically in LA. I've seen every movie, and I would play every game that ever comes out that involves LA cops. So
that's a what's watching topic right there. All the shows and movies about crooked LA.
Yeah, I mean the Shield is one of my probably number 2 favorite shows of all time. So it's, I think that's what laid the groundwork for Grand Theft Auto 5 being so near and dear to my heart, because I was just aching for a modern day Los Santos, and I got it, and well worth it.
Nice. Well, it's a nice pick. We're coming around the corner here. We got 2 more picks each, and I want to say Nick probably knows these 2 picks for me.
Oh no.
I'm just gonna play Castlevania and buy Grand Theft Auto on my phone. I'm gonna spend all my Google money on games. Well, all these games Chad keeps telling me that are on my phone.
All right, so number 2, this should come to no shock for Nick, is Dust 514 on the PlayStation 3. So, Nick, you can go ahead and mute me now. This will be about like 10-15 minutes. No, this game, man, where do I even start? This game came out near the end of the PlayStation 3 life cycle. It was developed by CCP, who made EVE Online, and still runs and develops EVE Online. And this game was actually like I don't know what the term would be, like a sister game to EVE Online. It took place in the same universe, a shared universe, but it was a first-person shooter on PlayStation 3, whereas EVE Online is like a space sim MMO on PC.
I think was it originally Eve Dust 514 or something?
Yeah, I think that's like the official title. But yeah, it was a very short-lived first-person shooter, which that's a whole entire episode topic that we can get into, is the failures of CCP as a dev company. They're awful.
Ooh, top 5 worst dev companies.
There you go. All 5 CCP.
Number 1 is EA. Number 1 is EA.
True. That's
no. They get the platinum. They get the platinum like above.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh man, but this game really had the potential to completely change the genre of first-person shooters, and like I think that's what makes me hate CCP so much, is like they're just utter mishandling of this property. And let me tell you why this could have changed the landscape of first-person shooters. So, like I said, this game took place in EVE Online's universe, and it was actually cross-platform between PC and PlayStation 3. So, like, what you could do in your matches on Dust 514 as a PlayStation player is, once you reach certain criteria in the match, you could actually have pilots from EVE Online like sitting above your planet, the battle zone or whatever. And you could request them to, send orbital bombardments like drop bombs on your battlefield for you and kill players, which I thought was like at the time was pretty crazy because that's happening in a PC game, a space sim MMO sitting above a planet that players on PlayStation 3, a first person shooter, are having an FPS match on, and they could just literally drop bombs from their ship onto your battlefield on PlayStation, which is like insane. It's crazy. And like you could even look up at the sky and see like the ships sitting above the thing, which was totally cool. But I think another thing that kind of helped make this FPS stick out from most others is it had an interesting explanation as to why you're able to respawn after you die. Because much like EVE Online, I don't know if either of you guys know anything about EVE Online, but your pilot in EVE Online is a clone, and every time you die, your consciousness transfers into another clone. So they kind of carried that over into Dust, where your soldier, every time you died, your consciousness got transferred into another husk of a clone, and you come out on the battlefield. So like you could win matches in two ways, either by depleting the enemy team's clone reserves. So like you kill a certain number of players, the match will end because they have no more ability to respawn, or whatever that game mode objective was, which I thought was really cool. And on top of that, every time you died, you had to, when you built your loadouts, you had to purchase your equipment and your gear with in-game money that you earned at the end of matches. And every time you died, you lost one of everything that was on your loadout. Oh, wow. So there was like a strategy of like financial management, like risk reward, because obviously better gear costs more. ISK is what it was called in the game. So you could run a really crazy loadout, but it would be really expensive if you died, like, cost you hundreds of thousands of ISK in game. Or you could run like a weaker loadout, but it was like, it would be better for you financially at the end of the match because of how many times you died versus how much money you made in the match. So it was like this really interesting like balance of like, do I just want to destroy everyone and risk dying a couple times and losing all my money, or like things like that. And on top of that, if you ran out of inventory for your dropouts in the match, you couldn't like pick that dropout anymore. You had to select a loadout that you had actually like in stock, which I thought it was just like a really unique take on first person shooters, and like kind of added consequence to just running into the fight and dying like repeatedly over and over again, because it actually hurt your wallet in game, which is kind of cool, because if you couldn't buy your stuff, then you had to use like really sucky loadouts, and it was awful.
So it makes you probably more tactical in your approach.
Yeah, it was a very tactical shooter too, and they like kind of like Team Fortress and Gotham City Imposters, like you had different roles on the battlefield. So like there were supports that healed and replenished ammos, heavies that were much harder to kill, had a lot of armor and used bigger guns, and like scouts that were nimble and fast and could stealth and things like that, which also added another layer of complexity to the game. But they added like an end game material and like a guild system. So like in the game you could form guilds, which were called corporations, and then corporations could form alliances with other corporations. So you could have like these big like wars against competing guilds and whatnot. And they kind of took this to the next level with their end game content, if you could even call it end game content in a first person shooter, because there's no middle or beginning game to first person shooters. But they had this mode called Planetary Conquest, which your corporation could fight for control of planets within the EVE systems, well as like one specific system in EVE. But if your corporation was able to take control of districts on these planets, the longer you held those districts or planets, they would produce money for your corporation, and then your corporation could pay the players and things like that. So there were corporations, whose sole goal was to capture and hold as many planets as possible. And then there were other corporations that were much smaller and, had more skilled players that didn't care about holding planets. They would get hired by other corporations to go capture planets and then give them to the other corporations. And So like all of this Planetary Conquest content generated this crazy metagame outside of the game. Like on the forums, there was so much like trash talk and like corporation versus corporation, alliance versus alliance wars, and like it was one of the most fun, immersive gameplay experiences I've ever had. I played it for a couple of years, basically from beta till like when it shut down. But I don't know. It was crazy because then, you know, while you're vying for control of these planets, you could have your pilots in Eve sitting above the planets, and what it did in Eve is it sparked conflict amongst corporations in Eve that were sitting above these planets. They would be fighting each other, and so it just like it created this crazy ecosystem of like metagame between the two games. And like Eve is already well known for having like a crazy metagame with like espionage and like things like that, and just having that transferred into an FPS on a console and then being able to commingle with Eve and PC players at the same time was like so next level. But CCP is so dumb that they did this like literally a year before the PS4 came out, and they had no intentions to make a port for the PS4. They just pretty much let the game die, even though they had like it wasn't a huge player base, but it was a very dedicated player base. And like, it was just completely mishandled. They, you know, floated rumors about like making a PC port, basically remaking the game on PC. And, you know, that rumor started like several years ago and like has gained no traction. So it's like everyone who is a fan of Dust has completely lost hope that there would ever be a remake or a reboot or whatever. But what my last point here for Dust, this actually is like my claim to internet fame. On the Dust forums, they had they created like a Hall of Fame for each role in the game, and players voted on what players they thought, you know, deserved to be in the Hall of Fame for whatever specific role. Somehow I got voted into the like support class, the logistics class Hall of Fame, and I was like one of like maybe 10 players in the whole player base that was like in this Hall of Fame on the forum, which was like, it was super cool. A little humble brag here, but like yeah, it was a blast. Like I met some cool people playing on there, and like we had a cool little corporation guild going on, and it was just like it was one of the most fun experiences I've had playing a game, let alone a competitive game. And it's just breaks my heart that, you know, it's just dead and it will never come back, which blows my mind.
That's a sub theme we have this episode. That game was ahead of its time because it was attached to a game. While it is still in current time, it is still ahead of our present time because Eve is beyond the comprehension of most most of the gamer base. That's why it's not the biggest game. But that entire, if that can get recreated somehow, that would be awesome and executed properly. Battlefield, I think 4 did a similar, not similar, not even remotely close to that, but they had it where you could, like, from your phone or a tablet, you could be like the commander, and you could be in the gunship or whatever, calling like the strikes and all that kind of stuff. It was a good attempt at a little bit of a larger meta, and bringing a mobile to console kind of thing, but definitely nothing like that.
So another thing about this game is it had very deep like RPG elements in it, because everything that you were able to do, like every role you were able to play, every weapon or piece of modification equipment that you could do to your drop suit, you had to skill into. So you get skill points and like in-game currency at the end of every match. So like you had to grind out skill points and skill into like armor types and weapon types and equipment types that unlocked better and more proficient gear for you to use, and on top of that, it also had vehicle gameplay, so you could there were like Jeeps with turrets on the back. They had huge tanks that you could skill into, and you could just solely be like a tank pilot. And that was your thing. You would just call down tanks and drive around the battlefield and try to blow people up. They had drop ships that you could fly solo that had guns on it, or like carry people in that had guns on the side. So like it was just like crazy all out like war, like with vehicles everywhere and ground troops everywhere and like all these crazy roles. I don't know. It was so fun, and it's so sad that it died.
Yeah, it definitely sounds cool. Nick definitely took the words out. It sounds like it's ahead of its time. I knew that it existed, but I had never played it. I've never played EVE Online, and I kind of wanted to dabble in EVE Online because I want a good space game, and that was like kind of on my list of games I wanted to check out, along with like Elite Dangerous and that stuff, because I played No Man's Sky and it's cool, but it's very repetitive and very just soulless kind of. And they've really turned that game around. But I've always wanted to play EVE Online, but I didn't for whatever reason I didn't tie these two together, even though it's titled EVE.
Yeah,
I didn't. I just figured it was just like a spinoff. I didn't know they were tied in that way. So it's definitely cool, and it sounds ahead of its time for sure.
Yeah, CCP also, I think it was on PS4, but released a dogfighting game called Valkyrie.
Yeah.
I gotcha. I was like that.
No, they didn't go Michael Vick on us.
I was
like a pilot, like dogfighting,
like Mike. What kind of games are you into,
Jeez, man?
Oh my gosh, yes. But hey, this is another game that was introduced to me by our chief mod, Ryan, aka Fortress Tiberius. You'll see that's a recurring theme, is Ryan introduces me to games, and then as soon as he introduces me to them, he stops playing them, and then I get super addicted to it.
He's the enabler.
Yeah, he really is. He's just like, hey, have you ever tried cocaine? Me neither.
I'm
and then just
rehab,
shoves it all in my
it out.
face. Yeah. He doesn't even take any. He just like shoves it in my face and runs away. But yeah, that's my number 2. I'm sure Nick probably assumed that would be on my list somewhere because I talk about it a lot.
I've heard it so many times. I know the spiel.
Yeah.
I'm jealous. I wish I got to play it.
Yeah, I am too, actually. It sounds really cool.
It was super fun. I miss it a lot. It's a lot like Pokemon. I'll just like be sitting here one day and be like, man, I wish I could play Dust.
And then Chad's like, they pour it into your phone.
Yeah.
Beckett comes down and I'm just like naked under my computer desk on my phone, like playing Dust. She's like, what happened? I'm like, I don't want to talk about it. Anyways, so before this devolves anymore, Chad, what's your number 2 pick?
So my number 2 pick is Sekiro: Shadows Die Twice. Now, this was a hard one for me, and it's funny that it worked its way all the way up to number 2 because, and I talked about this on the show before, if you've listened, so I'll break it down quickly again. Kind of
before
my history.
You get into that,
yeah.
Can I just say thank you for typing that in the chat?
Yeah, you're welcome.
There's no way I was going to be able to spell that right.
Honestly, I would have been doing that, but I just saw it as you were talking about EVE that you guys were doing that. So I figured I should probably at least do it with this one.
Yeah.
So
thank you for that.
So back in early 2019, I was in very dire need of a samurai game. I wanted a samurai game, and I don't really know what sparked it. I probably watched a movie and I got on a kick, and that's how my life works. So Ghost of Tsushima had been announced, but it was nowhere near being released. And there wasn't really anything out on the PS4 except for Sekiro. Now, Sekiro is a Demon Souls, or
Dark
Souls-like is what they call them, Demon and Dark. It's a Souls-like game, and I've never, up until this point when I'm buying Sekiro, I've never played any of the Demon Souls game. They've never, they never stood out to me. I'm not a big fan of punishingly hard games, so I kind of stayed away from them. But
me neither.
But yeah, it doesn't appeal to me. It didn't appeal to me. Let me start by saying that. It didn't appeal to me back in 2019. But Sekiro was the only samurai game out. The only one that was like, good reviews, play this game. So I went and picked it up, gave it a chance. I took the chance on Sekiro, brought it home, put probably 2 hours into it, and I was like, it's hard. These enemies are hard. It's not too bad. I can deal with this, and I'm digging it. And then I get to the first mini boss in the game, and he's like a general. He's not even the main, like a main boss. He's just a mini boss. And this guy whooped me for literally like 3 to 4 hours over and over and over. And the thing about Souls-like games is you not only have the bosses, but you have the fights leading up to getting into the doors to fight the bosses. So when you die, you have to do that all over again. So it's not like you just went through this hard battle and then you die at the boss and then you just got to fight the boss again. Typically, you have to fight through all the enemies that you just fought to get there. So I was like, you know what? Whatever. I'm not doing this. I returned it. Tried to put it out of my mind, moved on, and I couldn't stop thinking about it. And I was so mad that I've been a gamer since I've 7 years old, and this game finally, it's the one that I had to give up on. So, so I finally was like, you know what? I'm just gonna go and pick this game up, and I'm gonna beat it. I'm gonna master it, and I'm not gonna stop until. And that's exactly what I did. I picked it back up. I learned the combat system, which is, for my money, one of the best combat systems of any game ever. And I talked before that it's almost kind of like a rhythm game. You're weaving in attacks and deflects and blocks and dodges and trying to get your heals off in time. And I didn't notice that I had a craving for this because one of my favorite old school games of all time are the Mega Man series. And Mega Man was always about getting to a boss and figuring out how to beat him. And I feel like the Souls-like games are kind of like the modernization of that style of game. So it's just a game that once it gets its claws into you, it's not going to let up. And if you learn the combat system and get good at it, there's not any other game that I've ever played that has such a high risk reward thing going on, or highs and lows. Like you're just in the dumps, you're fighting a boss. It's like the 14th time you're fighting him, and you can't even get a hit on him. He's just obliterating you, and then you figure it out, and it's like the most joyous moment of your life. You're like, yes.
Yeah.
So that kind of gameplay and game was lost on me because I had never played these games. And like I said, I played the Mega Man game, so I had a little bit of that when I was a kid, but they're nothing like Mega Man's hard for most people. I'm very good at Mega Man, but the kind of modernization of that Mega Man style of boss fights and learning patterns and learning where you can weave your attacks and your deflects in.
Yeah.
It's absolutely amazing. And I also want to say that Ghost of Tsushima is absolutely a stellar game too. That's a great samurai game. It just depends on what you're looking for. If you're looking for amazing combat, Sekiro is your game. If you're looking for a beautiful, stunning open world to explore, Ghost of Tsushima is your game. But I was a little shocked actually when I put this on my list. And then as I was working through my list, it just kept moving up and up and up. And I'm like, man, I love this game. And actually, before we sat down to record today, I was like, you know what? I'm going to try and, I'm going to pop it in and see how far I can get without dying, because I hadn't played it in a while. And I got pretty decently far until I, tragically died before beating the game, which kind of upset me. I was thinking I was going to beat it. But so I know you guys haven't played Sekiro. Have you guys played any of the Demon Souls or Dark Souls games?
I played Dark Souls for a hot minute. And then maybe Dark Souls 2. Was that on PS4?
PS3.
PS3. Did they do a remake on PS4?
I think there's a remaster on PS4.
I think I picked up the remaster of 2 on PS4.
Yeah, once I played Sekiro, I went back and played Dark Souls 3 is where I started, and they're good. They're good. And I got Demon Souls for the PS5 because it launched a remake of Demon Souls for the PS5. They're good. They don't have that lovely combat that Sekiro has, that kind of rhythm combat. It's more of it's like I talked about Castlevania earlier. You're super slow and you're super, you can only attack and then you're like out of breath. You can attack twice and you're out of breath and you can't roll. It's just not, it's not for me. There's no stamina bar in Sekiro. You can attack as much as you want. You can dodge as much as you want. You can deflect as much as you want. There's like a posture bar. And if your posture gets broken, you kind of get stunned for, a couple seconds. And that can be really detrimental in Sekiro, that couple of seconds, because most bosses can kill you in 1 to 2 hits. But it's a good game, man. It's definitely worth picking up.
I know that Demon Souls remaster looks absolutely gorgeous.
Oh, it's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. Yeah.
Like, makes me wish I had a console.
Yeah, I was a little surprised at just how beautiful and amazing. It just looks so much more amazing. Ghost of Tsushima on the PS5. Like, if you're gonna play that game and you haven't played it yet and you plan on getting a PS5, I would wait, because it just looks beautiful. I mean, I don't know I've never used a photo mode in a game as much as I use the one in Tsushima, because it's just like there are times where like literally the scenes like take my breath away. I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to take a picture of this. Now it's kind of weird because most of my pictures have like, lumps of blood flying through the air and all this stuff. But it really is, with the cherry blossoms in the back and the sunrise and stuff. It's just, it's a beautiful game. So I wanted to point Ghost of Tsushima out. It didn't make my list, but it is, it's probably dabbling around my list for sure.
Nice. Very nice. I know that you definitely brought, I think, both of those up last time when you were talking about your samurai kick. So
right, yep,
kind of makes sense that it's
now. So here we are.
Nice, Nick. What do you got for number 2?
Number 2. Okay, so you can type this one out because I know you can do it. But I am going to settle on the Civilization series for my number 2 pick, and if I absolutely had to choose one of them, there's 6 in the main franchise. I'm always a sucker for the latest edition of it. It's just the one I currently play. I have a hard time going back and playing earlier editions of that game, but 5 maybe is like the most solid all around, even though 6 is really great. But Civilization is what you would call a 4X strategy game. So it's exploration, expand, and like 2 more of them, but exterminate.
Oh, I love that. That was fantastic.
And xylophone. There's your 4Xs.
Yeah, I see my 4Xs, but
it's explore, expand, exploit, and exterminate.
Exploit. There we go. That was the exploit. But yeah, I mean, they're turn-based games unless you're on multiplayer. Obviously, there's like a timer, and it's all kind of like real time. But another one of those I do not play on multiplayer just because I like to curate the perfect little empire or big empire where everything's just kind of like min-maxed. So I got like all the perfect placement of my cities. But for people who don't know, you start off with a settler and maybe a warrior, if you will, maybe a scout. You're basically on a giant game board. Everything's tile based. And you move about the map, you settle cities, you build roads, you improve the land. Different versions of the game allow you to terraform, even like reducing mountains to plains. You could do that in Civilization 2. That was a little OP end game where you could just level mountain ranges. But great game because, I mean, they start you off in the beginning of time and it takes all the way to the modern one, takes you all the way to like the atomic information era or even like a future era. I don't make it to end game a lot because I get kind of like duck just restarting a new game all the time because the expand is my favorite part of those games. But they're just completely endless, and they're different every time. Little bit of history in there just because there's different kind of like civilizations and things like that. But I mean, outside of that, it really deviates from any kind of historical accuracy. If you're a map nerd like me, it's all about the map. And in the latest one, they made it a big point that the map is more dynamic, and the map is kind of like a player AI against you, because now they got like climate change in there and like flooding and volcanoes and the sea level rises. So there's even some meta end game where you actually burn. You can like just burn fossil fuels and make the temperature rise to where if you have enemy empires on the coast, you kind of sink them.
Nice.
So hustle inland. But no, I mean, just simply purely out of the fact that I've played one of these games. You know, the first one came out in 1992, I'm pretty sure, and I played that along with Age of Empires early on that Toshiba laptop. So probably since like 2000, I've played a Civilization game for 20 years. Every single year I've played some degree of Civilization.
Dang, dude.
So I could not leave it off my list just out of pure amount of time sunk into it, enjoyment I get out of that game.
I'm actually really shocked that this was not number one.
Yeah, it was tough. Just the size and impact of it, right? Just how massive it is and how much I've played it and know about it. Yeah, it was hard to muscle out of number one, but
which makes me really curious what your number one is. I thought I had you pegged, but nope. I guess I don't.
That's not.
Before we move on, though, I swear I'm starting to think that PM Fusion is actually Chad.
Wow,
is
it Chad?
He's just putting these comments in after he talks just to make himself look better than us. But
Best friends.
PM Fusion says, I've been a fan of the Souls franchise. I've played Demon Souls, Dark Souls 1 and 2, which is his personal favorite, and 3, and I've beaten them all at least twice. So
Ooh.
There you go, another
champion.
No Sekiro in there, PM Fusion. Answer us as we talk about Civilization. So Civilization for me, Mike, have you played Civilization? Any of them?
I've like
4.
Very minorly dabbled in 4. And somebody gifted me, I think 6, maybe 5 on
4
Steam.
Is really good too.
But yeah, it's that whole style of game. Like I've played a little bit of Tropico and stuff like that. I'm incredibly bad at those types of games.
Yeah.
I want to do some multiplayer with you in like Age of Empires or something.
Yeah,
just
I would be
obliterate them.
Yeah, I would be the one falling into the sea because I wouldn't be smart enough to move inland.
You think you have like some sweet advantage going on, and then
when did this become Waterworld?
I come in with like a mech walker, which they have.
I'm still like trying to start a fire with like some twigs over
it's
there.
Okay.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, okay. But yeah. Have you, Chad?
I have not actually, and it's always been a game that's appealed to me, and I've just never got around to it. And I've talked on the show. I'm not the biggest PC gamer, and that might be it. But it's always a game that I'm like, man, I feel like I would really love this game, and I just never get it. I never get around to it.
Yeah,
that needs to be my New Year's resolution next year. Try to dabble in some real-time strategy.
That actually would be a pretty fun episode idea, making a list of games that were like, I would probably really like that, but I've never played it.
Right. Yeah.
Because I have a lot of games like that.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like just to point out a conversation that we had. I feel like Mass Effect is right there, and I've never played any of the Mass Effect games, and they finally announced those remasters. So I'm like, finally
get that Legendary Edition. I might have to as well. so I can sadly own that game, all those games like 3 different times.
Right.
So good at squeezing us out of money.
Yeah.
Oh well.
Just take it. But yes, so now we've made it to number 1. We're almost there, and we're closing in on 2 hours, which is pretty fascinating. We still have, quite a bit of things to get through, so we'll try to speed it up a little bit. But PM Fusion again, my one friend gifted me Civilization 5, and Nick's convincing me to start playing it.
There you go.
If there's anyone to convince you of playing RTS or strategy type games, it is definitely Nick.
Dude, five was solid. 5 was very solid. That's when the first game they switched to hexagon from square tiles. That was a big thing. But 4 is also really good. They're all really good.
Just play them all. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
All right. Number 1. Here we go. To no one's surprise, League of Legends.
I might have to take my headphones out for this
Yeah.
one.
No,
Yeah,
I'll make this
you're on
extremely quick. I hate myself for loving and being addicted to this game.
This game sucks.
Like I said earlier, like many of the games on my list, this was first introduced to me by Ryan. So I hate you and love you for that, for ruining and making my life miserable with this game. But
what year was that?
Man, I don't remember exactly when I he first introduced it to me and we started playing, because at first I only played it a handful of times and I stopped for a while. And then I got back in when our oldest child was born back in 2015. And I only remember that because they had a really cool login screen, the Super Galaxy Rumble screen, and it had like an amazing theme song. So like that's the only reason I remembered 2015. But really what got me into it the second time and made it stick was while I was on, like I took a week off work when our oldest was born, just to help out as our first child, help adjust to being parents and whatnot. I started watching, this is when I started watching esports. Like my Roku had an MLG app on it and I would throw that on and watch like Call of Duty or Halo. And then I eventually got bored with those and I started watching some like Dota tournaments, and then eventually watching Dota tournaments led me to Twitch, which led me to stumbling onto the League of Legends Championship Series. So watching the LCS a lot made me like really enjoy the competitive nature of League, and that's what got me back into playing. But long story short, I've formed some really cool friendships on this game. Was a part of some gaming clan that we like ran our own league, made our own teams, had a season and playoffs, and it was just a really cool way to scratch the competitive itch, that I no longer am able to scratch. Back in high school, I used to play, baseball and sports and stuff. And after graduating and becoming fat and old, I can only taste that competition through competitive gaming, and I suck at first-person shooters now. So League has kind of taken that over. There's there's a lot of strategy and the team building and the gameplay, and even though it's a decade old, they're still adding new champions to play as, multiple times a year, reworking items and buffing and nerfing certain things. So there's always something to learn. There's always a new champion to learn. There's new strategies to learn, and just being able to be competitive and have a ranked grind that I can do, which, by the way, I'm getting close to, checking off one of those goals from our 2021 gaming goals. I just hit gold 4 yesterday, so I only have 4 divisions to climb through until I hit platinum, which was one of my goals. So we're getting there. But yeah, that's number 1 for me. I won't talk about it very often or very much more because I already
talks about it every single episode. So.
Yeah. Everyone who's listened to this show for any length of time knows I have a very crippling addiction to this game. But before we move on, I assume neither of you have comments about League of Legends, so we don't have to.
Yeah, my brother-in-law plays it a lot, but it just doesn't appeal to me in any capacity whatsoever.
Yeah.
I don't know what that your deal is with like getting to Deluxe Diamond or whatever their highest rank is, but I played the intro like tutorial and I just like decimated everything that was happening. So I don't know what the holdup is.
I mean, maybe you need to come play with me. Let's hop in, duo queue, carry me, bro. Get me to platinum.
All right.
But one last note: the LCS spring season starts tomorrow. So if you're a fan of esports, tune in to the YouTube channel. Not our YouTube channel, though. If you want to, go subscribe. But yeah, check it out on YouTube.
PM Fusion, we're talking to you there.
That's right. That's right. You better subscribe and tell all of your friends to subscribe.
You didn't meant to be in Chad's clone, so
yeah.
Yes, that's true.
Speaking of PM Fusion, coming in with some more hot takes. He admits he's actually Chad's secret clone, but I wasn't given a modern enough console to play Sekiro, so I am different as to not raise suspicion. And then he says, had to play Dark Souls 3 through a buddy of mine.
Nice, man.
So,
I hope you get a chance to play Sekiro. It's fantastic. And Mike did the perfect Sekiro right there. There is a boss in the game that says his name exactly like that. Literally exactly like that.
Yes. Sometimes, every once in a while, what's that say? Blind squirrel can tell the time on a clock or something. I don't know.
You were close.
Anyways, so Chad, what you got? Number one.
All right.
It's time.
Number one for me is Metal Gear Solid. Ooh. Now, Metal Gear Solid is the game that I did not struggle with on my list whatsoever. It's been number one since I played it. And I got to be honest with you, I don't know that it's ever going to get dethroned as my number one game. This was the very first game that I played where I kind of like had the epiphany of, wow, like games can be so much more than what most studios are doing at the time. Now, this game came out in 1998, and I would argue to say that it kind of changed the landscape of all games and gaming moving forward. And for a single game to do something like that, it's quite the accomplishment. But just to break it down for anybody that's never heard of it before, it tells the story of protagonist Solid Snake as he attempts to infiltrate a nuclear weapons facility that's been hijacked by terrorists threatening to launch the nukes. It's at the time it was pretty unique style of stealth gameplay. It kind of laid the groundwork for stealth games and kind of moved that genre forward. But I became very, very engrossed with this game because it's just got amazing gameplay. It's got an absolutely gripping story. It's like you're playing an action movie. And as you can tell from most of my list, I have Uncharted on there. Those are the games that I love. I love sitting down and feeling like I'm playing an action movie. And I also love introducing people to gaming that don't game with those games. So like if you're going to sit down and show somebody, why you're so obsessed with games, you're going to show them Uncharted or the Metal Gear, series. Right. So one of the big things for me is the way that they kind of innovated throughout this game and all the crazy stuff they did in it. And the one that I'm going to bring up is Psycho Mantis, the boss fight, which is a little bit later in the game. He's a psychic, and he can kind of take advantage of, they figured out a way to let him take advantage of the PS1 software. So like if you had a Rumble controller, he would tell you to put the controller down. He's going to move the controller and it would vibrate.
I've heard about this. Yes.
He could also read your memory card. And if you had any other Konami games on it, he would, call them out, whatever it was you had on there, amazing. Castlevania, whatever. And then the other thing that it did was just like crazy things that made you think that you were like kind of going out of your mind. And at the time, TVs, when they lost signal, they would have that like little green thing up in the corner that would say video. And it that would happen in the boss fight. And it would say Hideo, which is the creator of the game. And it would make you think like your PlayStation just lost signal. And then it would come back. It's just there. And really, it's so cool, and it's so cool that this happened in 1998 because it seems to be like a lost thing. Like they could be doing so much more with this style of, tricking you and that stuff. It's just a brilliant way to build a boss fight, and it made the game just so much fun.
Yeah, that's really creative and innovative. Super cool. Now, Metal Gear Solid, is that the origins of like the box meme? Like isn't there a part where you like hide under a cardboard box or something?
Yeah. So yeah, there's various different ways to hide, and one of those is hiding in a cardboard box, and it's super cool because it's fun to sneak around the enemies and stuff, but just to like be hiding in a cardboard box right in front of their face. And Metal Gear Solid 5, the newest one, you could like put up a cardboard cutout of a soldier, and it would really trick the soldiers and throw them off this like cardboard cutout of a.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, it's so cool, man. I think that Hideo Kojima is, for my money, like in my lifetime, the greatest video game designer of all time. And I think that he kind of got a raw deal at Konami. And I think they are probably feeling it a little bit now that they booted him out the door, because they really don't have anything going on as far as, they have these awesome IPs that are just sitting there doing nothing.
Right.
They got Metal Gear Solid, they have Castlevania, they have Silent Hill. It's
rip Silent Hills.
Yeah, right. In PT, I don't know if you guys ever played like the PT, which was a teaser for a Silent Hill game, and it became like, it has like a cult following, just this demo that they had.
I forget how that got brought up on one of our episodes, but I definitely have talked about that for at least a brief moment on this, because that demo was so like unsettling.
Right.
So good.
I know that a lot of people are upset because you're not able to download it on the new generation consoles, and that's upset a lot of people. But
yeah,
I just feel like, for and I don't know how he is as a person. Maybe he was like a terrible employee and he's screaming all the time. I don't know any of that stuff.
Yeah.
I just feel like he got a raw deal, and he came out with a game that he put a lot of his heart and soul in, and I don't think it turned out quite the way he wanted it to, or anybody else wanted it to. But I hope he gets back on his feet, because I need some games from him before he retires.
Yes.
Because he's just got a way of storytelling and a way of making you feel creeped out. It's just it's just amazing.
Yes. And again, your pal PM Fusion. I think Chad is reading my mind. I love Metal Gear Solid, but specifically MGS3 is my favorite MGS game.
Yeah, that's not a. I mean, you're not in the minority there. I think Metal Gear Solid 3 is a lot of people's favorite, Snake Eater, but that for me was kind of the one that was the San Andreas of the Metal Gear Solid. Like they just went a little too far, and just didn't. Now the story moments are awesome, but I think that Metal Gear Solid will probably always remain my number one, and I hope that someday we get like a Resident Evil 2 style remake on it, because it's a game that would be, it would sell like hotcakes, but it's stuck at Konami, and they're like too busy making slot machines now. So
yeah, rip, man. That's a great pick for number one.
Thanks.
For sure. Man, Nick, surprise me.
Surprise you? It's not that surprising.
I don't know what to expect.
Yeah, you do. Come on.
Is it gonna be like my dad pick to you? Like,
no,
so blatantly obvious that you're like, I can't believe that he didn't see that coming.
Yeah, in that sense, yeah, definitely. I'm not gonna pick some kind of like off the cuff, deep, dark YouTube channel pick as my favorite film franchise.
That's right. Hey, shameless plug. Go listen to our favorite film franchise episode. It was very fun. My number one pick will shock and surprise you.
Oh dear.
What's the most click? You'll never guess what. I don't know. I can't think of a clickbaity title.
Yeah, right.
Anyways, what do you got for number one?
All right, so we are taking it back to 2000. 4
Oh,
and
I think I know.
2006. We are talking the original Battlefront 1 and 2 by Star Wars. Great games. Unfortunately, I'm not going to say that they are the best games. I'm not going to say that they are deservedly my number one picks, but with a combination of nostalgia, of course, I always got to throw that in there.
Check.
A combination of potential, right?
Check.
And just obviously there's Star Wars. Got to check that.
Check.
And once again, especially the second one, a little bit ahead of its time, and they should have done a 3 like in 2008, right out the gate, and that would have been my favorite game of all time, Star Wars Battlefront 3. That never happened, because one, a couple knocks on them. AI, not the greatest. Story-wise, campaign, single player, not the greatest. But they just ultimately let you have Star Wars battles, right? In all the key locations, tons of troops and enemies on the map, all the vehicles, flying plus ground battles, space battles. Space battles, you could board the enemy ship, take out key components of the ship from the inside, all of it, right? Just, not completely fleshed out like you need to be. There needed to be a 3, there needed to be a 4 to keep that going. And the biggest thing that they were never able to deliver on was the galactic conquest that was in Battlefront 2. And much kind of like, basically it was like maybe a console version of EVE in a sense. Not quite. That's going way too far. But the fact that you had the whole galaxy map, all the popular planets, you spent resources to build up fleets and ground troops. You would have a space battle, take over the space around the planet, then you would have the ground battle and fight on the planet, much like the RTS Empire at War, the Star Wars game there, which is like kind of like a Warcraft or a StarCraft-esque game. But it just captured so much of the larger kind of like war part of Star Wars, where up until that point, there's a lot of first-person games, flying games. This kind of just really took the power of the PlayStation 2 and took it to the next level in my mind. And it was just endless hours of play. Like I'm pretty sure I killed my PlayStation 2 Slim just playing that game nonstop.
Nice. We have someone in agreement. Can you guess who it is?
It's our boy, BM Fusion.
Classic Battlefront games are a nostalgia trip. I love playing those with buddies, aside from the flying sections, which kind of sucked.
Yes. Yeah. Lots of like pullbacks on those games, but I'll keep saying like there should have been a 3 in 2008 or something, and they would have just hit a gold mine.
So what's the difference between the recent Battlefront games?
So the biggest problem with those is the 2 letters that we love the most, and that's E and A. So the first Battlefront 1 remake is like 100% multiplayer online. They're basically just trying to do money grab online, shoot 'em up kind of thing. They had some instant action that was okay. And then 2 did a lot to improve on it, a lot more game mode types. But to me, they were just, obviously the graphics and all that was in the sound, and they improved on every aspect except the fact that you could not do, 200 versus 200 reinforcement count battles, right?
Yeah.
You couldn't do the full like starts as a space battle and take it down to the ground. They didn't have the galactic conquest where you had the whole galaxy map and you're fighting the AI, you're fighting even online against other people. There was just so much more they could have, I don't know, taken time to invest in there to make those literally the same games they were. Like they should have been like ridiculous remakes, if anything. But they're just missing that kind of that instant action and the single player, which would have been really good multiplayer too. Because they did that with like Battlefield 2041, whatever, like many years ago, where you had like 80 on 80, and it was just like a complete clusterfuck. So I don't know. I just feel like they were a big missed opportunity there, and it was just very narrow-sighted vision of EA, and they're just like loot boxes, multiplayer, you know, all the big things here that make things rich.
Right. Yeah.
So the big takeaway from tonight is don't trust game developers where their names are just an amalgamation of letters.
Yes.
CCP, terrible. EA, terrible.
Yeah. I think we're coming out of the EA Star Wars thing. It's, you know, they've already announced the games. They've lost their license to Star Wars. So that doesn't mean that those Battlefront games are going away. I think EA is going to continue to make games, but I think they're going to be overshadowed by everybody else that's going to be making Star Wars games.
I mean, they still have the opportunity to make a Star Wars Battlefront 3. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
2024, make the third one, make it look just like the new Battlefront 2, but add all the things that everyone wants from the originals.
And I think they, if they're smart, they're going to, and they're going. If you look at Battlefront 1 to Battlefront 2, they're going in the right direction.
Yeah.
But I would agree with you that Battlefront 1 was good for like 2 hours of fun. You know what I mean? Flying around the X-Wing. I love the fighter squadron mode in it.
Mm-hmm.
It felt super fun, but it only lasts so long. You know, you can only do that kind of stuff for so long until it's like kind of boring.
Yeah, and they messed up the progression. Like they were just huge grind fests, and there wasn't as much like dynamic to it. Now, the original Battlefront 2 was a major grind fest for your stats. Like eventually you unlock the triple bolt, like triple blast rifle, which was a great feature because you just one shot everything. But you know, in 2005 or whatever, like that's just what made sense.
Right. Yeah, I think I liked Battlefront 2. I wish it had more, you know, as you can tell from my list, I'm not that big into multiplayer games. So I wish there was far more single player stuff in there. They had the single player mode, but I wish that I could play the online mode with bots. That would have been awesome. And that's something that I'm always like dying for. Like I want Battlefield games to have bots.
Yeah.
The Call of Duty games have bots, but you know, eventually that stuff gets boring too. So you got to have a lot there. But
Battlefront 2 had bots and they had instant action and it was okay, but like only you could set reinforcement count like pretty high, but only 10 AI things per side were spawned on the map. Like, no, I want at least like 50 or 100.
Right.
Like it needs to be a Battlefront.
Yeah, right, exactly. And when Battlefront 2 launched, like I said, my favorite from the first remake was the Fighter Squadron mode, and it didn't have bots for Fighter Squadron. I think it does now, and I went back and played it, and it's the same kind of thing. You know, it's fun for a couple hours, and that's it. But I'm very hopeful for the Star Wars games moving forward. I think that Massive announcing their game got me excited, but then when I thought about it, like they make the Division game, so it could kind of fall into that same kind of category as these games do, where they're just gonna, you know, shove the multiplayer down your throat. I feel like Star Wars is just prime for single player story driven narrative games. If you want to throw multiplayer in there too, that's fine, but give me like a giant open world Star Wars with all the different planets. And you know, I get that the Old Republic is there, but that's still not right up my alley, you know?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, they made Grand Theft Auto 5, and then they slapped on the multiplayer online to that game, and then that became its own game in itself.
Yeah.
Both games exist simultaneously. The pure single player of 5, and then online.
Yeah, and they're both absolutely stellar. So that's the way to do it. Give us build your world with your single player game. And single player, like Grand Theft Auto 5 is not a short game. It's not like they rushed it to get to the multiplayer, and multiplayer didn't come out for months after its release. So I feel like if you're going to do a Star Wars game, give me an open world game with all the galaxies, all the planets, everything, and then do your multiplayer months down the road and, shock us with the multiplayer and how awesome it is and how you can, travel through the galaxy and do all these it'd be cool to have something like the Eve games that we were talking earlier, where you have a ground force and the space force going on. It would be super cool. But I'm hopeful for Star Wars. I was a little down in the dumps for Star Wars games, and now that EA and Disney are kind of parting ways in a way, I think that's the best move for Star Wars, and I couldn't be more excited for it.
Same. It's definitely has a bright future ahead of it. That's for sure.
It does kind of suck though that they just released Jedi Fallen Order, which is like exactly kind of what I'm talking about, and Disney's like, yeah, sorry.
Well, they haven't they're not completely done.
Right. That's
EA
true.
and Disney, so there's still hope. So
and that was the difference. EA was the publisher on that game, not the developer. So
Spawn or something.
Yeah, I think we're definitely getting a Fallen Order 2. I think it's a no-brainer.
I hope so,
just looking at the sales numbers. So
yeah, that game is phenomenal. I love it. So, but yes, there we go. We got our top 5. So really, the Showboys top 15.
Yeah.
But yeah. So real quick, I know we're pushing pretty late here, but I say we all had. We were talking before we went live. We have like a million honorable mentions. So I think just to be concise, because we do have some lists that were submitted by some of our listeners on our Discord. Shameless plug, join our Discord where you can do cool things like interact with us and provide your takes on our topics that we will talk about in the show. So I'm just gonna read off mine. I'm not really gonna touch base on much of these, but I have World of Warcraft vanilla through Cataclysm, Madden 99 through 2005, and like the triple play baseball / MVP baseball, whatever it was called back then. Just a lot of memories, having sleepovers with my friend and like doing franchise mode, simulating the whole thing. A lot of fun memories from school. Resident Evil 2 and 4, the Tony Hawk games, throwback to Earthworm Jim on Super Nintendo. That game was amazing. Mario Golf, Mario Tennis on Game Boy. Those 2 games, holy crap, so addictive. Borderlands 1 and 2, can't go wrong with that. First Destiny, I played a ton of with some friends. And then another throwback to, PlayStation 1, Twisted Metal. That was a fun game. I used to play all the time with my buddies. And then one game that I'm looking forward to that maybe a year or 2 down the road will make a top 5 list for me, and that is New World, Amazon's MMO that's coming out hopefully in the spring this year on
Pushed
PC.
back.
Did it get pushed back again?
Yeah, something to that effect.
Big sad.
It's canceled.
So, make me happy, Nick. What are some of your honorable mentions?
Already mentioned Crash Bandicoot 3 that got tied in with Spyro. Horizon Zero Dawn, we mentioned that. That is definitely one of my big newer games. 100%ed the base game. Need to work on that expansion.
Those hundos.
God of War series, Gears of War series, Battlefield 2 and 3, World of Warcraft, StarCraft, Skyrim, Mass Effect series. Poor Andromeda, you didn't make the cut. Lego Star Wars, just any of those, pick them up and play them. Total War, Rome 2, Lord of the Rings, The Third Age, and Rust.
Nice. I'm actually shocked that WoW didn't crack your top 5.
Oh, it was so close, but that's just too convoluted of a story. That like is its own top 5 in itself, like top 5 expansions and pain and hate and love.
So much there. What about you, Chad?
I have Grand Theft Auto 3 and 5, The Last of Us, Breath of the Wild, Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, Spider-Man on the PS4, Ghost of Tsushima, The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, the Resident Evil 2 remaster, which I thought was absolutely, like I said, I wish we would get more of our childhood games remastered in that way.
Yes.
Mega Man 3, which is, I don't care what you say, the best Mega Man game. Control, which is just a super creepy game. I absolutely love Control. If you haven't checked it out, you should definitely go check it out because it's a great game.
Nice.
Red Dead Redemption 2, Halo 3, just based on the amount of time I played. Battlefield 4, which again is just amount that I played, and I was like a pretty lethal sniper, and I kind of miss it. And
that
then
was me in 2.
Yeah, and then Horizon Zero Dawn.
Nice. Yeah, so there was a lot of games. So even if you didn't find something on the top 5s that you might enjoy or bring back memories, I'm sure something on our honorable mentions probably touched a nerve. But yes, that leads us to our listener top 5 lists, which we actually had a really good amount of submissions. So everyone who participated in the Discord, thank you so much for your input. I love, this is my favorite part, when we're able to interact with you guys and engage with you guys. And yeah, so let's go through these. The first one, our chief mod himself, Fortress Tiberius, aka Ryan. He says, I'm going to start by saying this list is in no particular order, and some of these games weren't chosen because they were the, quote, best, but were chosen because they're important to me. Also, any of these games could change depending on the day. So he has Super Smash Bros. Melee on the GameCube. I wanted to include a multiplayer game on this list, and it was between this, Halo 2 and 3. But Smash edged it out just a bit. I spent many sleepovers playing this game into all hours of the night. Such good times. Sonic the Hedgehog 2 for Sega Genesis. This was the first game I can remember sinking a ton of time into. I would constantly go back to it as a kid. Sonic and the Genesis will always hold a special place in my heart. Crash Bandicoot makes his list on the PlayStation. Crash was far and away my favorite game or series on the PlayStation 1. I had every release for that console, including the oft-forgotten Crash Bash, which was a party game of sorts. Pokemon Crystal for the Game Boy Color. One of my favorite birthday gifts as a kid was lime green Game Boy Color with Pokemon Crystal as a pack-in. Boy, oh boy, did I play the poo out of this game. Come on, Nintendo, remaster this for the Switch, or at least just re-release it. Also, Suki, oh man, I hate saying this guy's name, but he was the best Pokemon ever, if you know who I'm talking about. And his honorable mentions were, he said he was spending too much time trying to choose his 5th game, so here's his list of honorable mentions. The Batman Arkham Asylum game, Marvel's Spider-Man on PS4, and Uncharted 2 on PS3. Hard to argue with those choices. Our next submission was Tom from B Hero Fights. He was on the episode last week. His list is number 1, Halo franchise, all of them still a consistent go-to for parties and linking up with friends. Halo 4 is by far my favorite for its gameplay and functionality. Number 2 is the Tony Hawk franchise up through Underground 2. Has always been just my chill-out go-to for low-key nights where I need to relax and not feel so competitive. The remasters, Tony Hawk 1 and 2, are now my favorite of the franchise. Number 3 is Destiny. He does not like Destiny 2. Although he put an ungodly amount of time into that game, he loves the first Destiny and still jumps into looking for groups and to carry people through raids. One of the few games I've done everything in. Number 4 is Modern Warfare 2, probably the only game that I have pretty much every achievement for and have done everything you can possibly do. Love that game. And number 5,
also known as the best Call of Duty ever. Let me just point
there you go. Chad, you heard it here. Probably not first, but definitely here.
Heard it. Been heard.
number 5 on his list is Mortal Kombat versus DC. Odd choice, I know, but nothing but the fondest fight night memories of that game. It was the only fighting game I got incredibly good at. Man, that's another genre of games that I suck at, fighting games. Whew, really bad.
Just smash all the buttons.
Yeah. Next up, our boy PM Fusion. This won't be a definitive list for me, but I'll cover some that I enjoyed a lot over the years and still find myself coming back to. Number 1, Tony Hawk American Wasteland on GameCube. Loves Tony Hawk games, but this one is one that almost nobody talks about. Between the customization, soundtracks, story, which is actually entertaining and cohesive for Tony Hawk, that is, the multiplayer options, and it introduced BMX into the Tony Hawk franchise, it's just a blast to play. Number 2, which we already talked about, even with PM Fusion on the episode tonight, is Castlevania Symphony of the Night on PlayStation 1. Number 3, Smash Brothers franchise for the 64, GameCube, Wii U, 3DS, and the Switch. There's no way I could pick just one, so all will do. I grew up with these, own all of them, and even play the most recent one, Ultimate, in tournaments occasionally. Smash will always have a soft spot in my heart. Number 4, Dragon Ball Fighter Z on the Switch. These are two things I like a lot, Dragon Ball and fighting games. And seeing as this game is both, but has a super rich combo and gameplay system, I've literally sunk 480 hours into this bad boy.
Wow.
Which is,
Switch.
which is more than any other fighting game I've ever played. That is quite impressive. That's like you're approaching League of Legends zone for me.
Yeah. I mean, I was bragging about 120 hours in Persona 4 Golden, but you quadrupled it.
And number 5 on his list is Dark Souls 2 for the PlayStation 3. Definitely a more controversial pick out of the Dark Souls franchise, but man, I find myself constantly coming back to this game. It's so fun and has a disgusting amount of replayability. It feels like one of the most experimental Dark Souls and doesn't always land with everything, but when it does, it's really good. Nick, are you in Discord right now? Could you read our friend Bianca's?
I sure can. So let's see here. She had a hard time narrowing down her top 5, and she's trying her best, but in no particular order. The Banjo-Kazooie?
Yep.
Banjo-Kazooie. Nintendo 64. I don't know of this one. Although I've been playing video games since Sonic the Hedgehog on the Sega Genesis, I consider Banjo-Kazooie my first true love. This was the first game that I poured an immense amount of time into. I played this game in an almost unhealthy, obsessive way, much like Mike's League of Legends addiction. I refused to move on to another world until I found every note, puzzle piece, Jinko, honeycomb, and so on. It was the first game I 100% completed from beginning to end. That is always something that earns a game into its nice niche of being a number 1. Her next pick is the Halo franchise on the Xbox. The original Halo was the first-person shooter that I got into. This game changed everything for me and started my love for shooters. The design work and every aspect of the game blew my mind. The environments were immense and dropped the player into an entirely unfamiliar universe. The character and weapon designs were exciting and creative for me. The storyline kept you on your toes and forced you into challenging and sometimes unnerving situations. The Flood. As the story progressed, between each game, the developers kept the good things, improved on certain things, and blew our minds with new content. This franchise as a whole has been consistently great, and I can't agree more. I know far too many people, and even myself, have played that game, and I definitely know a lot of people that might be their number 1. Great franchise. This good one. Her next pick is the Gears of War franchise, also on the Xbox 360 and Xbox One.
Seems like a big fan of Xbox.
I'm gathering that. Yeah.
Yeah, she is an Xbox girl. It's okay.
Yeah, we'll let that slide.
Yeah. Playing Gears of War for the first time made me very excited. This game hit different. After using the Lancer to saw an enemy in half, sending blood and gore all over my screen, I knew was love. This game was such a perfect hybrid of science fiction and horror. My favorite part about this game, aside from the gore, is how hard the weapons hit. You just feel powerful. The active reload is also fun once you get the timing down. This franchise, similar to Halo, has been really consistent and entertaining. I completely agree with that. Gears of War is in its own little ballpark of things. Coming in next is the Destiny franchise, another big Xbox franchise here. I don't know if it's unique to it, but no, it's not.
No,
I was associated with Xbox, but that might be because of her. Yeah, that's
her
why.
And Bungie, that's probably why.
I can't even begin to explain the amount of time I've poured into this franchise. I've been playing since the beginning, and it's one game I always come back to. Although Destiny 1 is definitely the better of the two games, I continue to hold on to hope that maybe someday Destiny 2 will get an overhaul the same way the Taken King changed D1. Even though D2 has been in comparison to D1, I do still enjoy it. In Destiny, there are so many game modes to choose from. There's something literally for everyone. The storyline, starting from D1, is truly awesome. There's even discoverable lore and component corresponds with your experience, which I think is super cool and adds an entirely new layer to the universe. But my favorite part of Destiny is the player customization. You can flexibly tailor your character to your exact play style, down to the modifications on your weapons. You can also edit your play style, which the creative in me loves. I'm always changing the colors and ornaments on my armor. That's always fun. I did like that about that game. The game can definitely be grindy, but usually rewarding. If you don't mind the grind and enjoy a looter shooter, this is definitely a game for you. I always kind of associate that with it's like the first person shooter of like World of Warcraft or something like that.
Yeah, that's a good pin on it. And to go to the ornament and changing colors and armor and stuff, that's like an obsession in every game of mine. Like I have to look off while I'm cutting through stuff, So
look good, play good.
Especially if they make you collect stuff to get that stuff.
Right.
And here we go. This is another common one that reoccurs is the Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild on the Nintendo Switch. This game absolutely blew her mind in all best ways possible. Hands down, the most immersive and beautifully game design I've ever played. I hear that a lot. I wish I need a Switch. That's just what this comes down to.
Yeah.
Chad, buy me a Switch. The amount of artistry, thought, and detail that went into development of this game is unbelievable. Seriously, I can't even begin to touch on everything. The playable world is absolutely enormous, and each area requires you to practice and use different skill sets while having to adapt to each environment. Throughout the storyline, which is great, there are puzzles that require creative problem solving and have unexpected solutions, which she loves. The boss fights are pretty challenging and require you to use skills that you've learned along the way to beat them. But again, what I love most about this game is the immersiveness and the beauty of it. It's so visually appealing in all ways.
Yeah, that's it. That's a perfect breakdown of the game, man. I kind of feel like it's probably working its way closer to my top 5 list. I think that there's no better game for just diving in and like discovering things like around every corner. You don't know what you're going to get into, and it's fun. And Ghost of Tsushima kind of mimics that quite a bit. So might want to check that out if you're that into Breath of the Wild. It doesn't come close to Breath of the Wild, but it's definitely knocking on the door.
So, like us, she also had an extensive list of honorable mentions. She had Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine on Sega, Jak and Daxter on PlayStation 2, Guitar Hero on PlayStation 2, Super Mario 64 on the 64, Doom 3 on Xbox and Xbox 360, Diablo 3 on Xbox One and Nintendo Switch, Portal on the 360, and a favorite of ours, Jedi Fallen Order on Xbox One. She apologized for her lengthy post and says she just really likes video games.
Well,
hey, that's what we asked for. Yep. So our friend Jordan, who's been on the show a couple times, seems to only make an appearance on the holidays, though. He said, as a competitive Overwatch and Smite player, Destiny 2 has become my chill co-op game. Very good. I downvote you, sir, because that is not a list of 5 games. But
Valid.
I'll take what I can get. And then our last submission here was by Ben Nonai, which I hope I didn't completely butcher your name, so I apologize. But he says, well, I'm not a huge gamer, so most of these games are games I played years ago, but here it goes in no particular order. Star Wars Battlefront on PlayStation 2, any of the Medal of Honor games on PlayStation 2, Lego Lord of the Rings on the Wii, Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing on the Wii, and Minecraft. With my honorable mentions as ATV Off-Road Fury 2 on PlayStation 2, Deer Hunter on PlayStation 2, and Spider-Man on PlayStation 2. To be honest, these games are probably not as good as I remember them, but I spent many fun hours playing them with my brother and by myself, and I would still have fun with them with just the nostalgia alone.
Yeah, that always sucks when you go back to a game and you're like, man, this is not what I remember it being.
Yeah, this didn't hold up, but yeah, but I sometimes it's kind of few and far between. At least for me, it has been.
Yeah, that's true. There are a lot of games that hold up today, but there are some that are just they don't. And the older Resident Evil games are perfect examples. Those games to me do not hold up. The tank controls and the fixed camera. It's like, ooh.
Yeah, for sure. But then you get a beautiful remaster like Resident Evil 2, which was amazing.
So good.
So we also have a channel in the Discord where you can ask us questions to answer on our episodes. So we actually had a listener submit a question. Ryan, he said, now we're 2 hours and 36 minutes into this episode, and this is a rather large question to ask. So in the most succinct and shortest way possible, let's try to answer this question for him.
Okay.
Because this could literally just be its own episode.
Oh, this could be a full episode for sure.
Yeah. So
kick the can. We're not going to touch it.
We'll just real quick answer. What old game would you like to see a remaster or remake for? So my answer to this question is I would choose Gotham City Imposters for a remaster from my list from tonight. And I would love to remake any of the old Pokemon games, like from Crystal back to Red or Blue, as like an open world MMO style of game. That's my short answer without going into any further details. What about you, Chad?
Metal Gear Solid.
Okay. Nick?
Battlefront 2.
All right. Hey, and they all happen to be games we talked about tonight.
True.
But yeah, that would be a fun episode to dive into.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Picking our favorite or one game and then like come up with like a detailed pitch and plan for it. That would actually be really fun. We might have to do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that about does it tonight. Do you guys have anything else left to say?
It's all been said.
Yes.
I'm gonna go play Castlevania and watch Castlevania at the same time.
I'm so jealous of you right now. I gotta be honest.
Well, I don't know about that. But thank you guys for coming. For those of you that tuned into the live stream, PM Fusion, thank you for commenting in. We loved the interaction. Tim, we don't like you, but thank you anyways for watching and commenting.
It'll be okay, Tim. It'll be okay, man.
But yes,
I gotta ask a question real quick. Is PM Fusion the one that said this was his first episode?
Yeah.
Man, he had the time of his life, I think.
I know, right? Well, maybe he'll come back next week.
Hope so.
Fingers crossed. But for those of you listening to the audio version of this, thank you so much for listening. We appreciate all of you the same. Please, you've heard us talk about it quite a bit throughout this episode. If you have not already, please join our Discord server. We have links in our bio on Instagram and Facebook, and you can also find the link to the Discord server on our Linktree page, along with all the platforms that our podcast is available on and all of our social media pages. And that link is linktr.ee/showboyspodcast. Wherever you listen or watch, whether it's YouTube or Apple or Google or Spotify, please subscribe if you can, like, rate, leave some comments, let us know what you think. We appreciate the interaction, and those things help us grow. And yeah, thanks. Welcome, Chad. Officially, even though this is like your 5th time on the show.
True.
We're glad to have you.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here. So hope we can keep this momentum going.
That's right. Well, until next week.
See you in the Discord.
Yeah, have a good one. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.